I'm so frustrated. I'm absolutely frustrated. Um, because everything is properly connected, and for some reason it mutes it when I get going. It's just it's so dumb. It's so dumb. Yes. Mm-hmm. My wife is in the room. She came here. She thought I was gonna go live in 30 minutes. And what? I'm sorry, folks. My wife is in here bothering me, um, giving me work to do here. Where is it? Oh, I think I know. My wife also likes this setup. So does everybody else. Was it a picture you sent me? You're in the camera. Stand away over there. Yeah, I saw your hand on your phone. But no, no, no. You can't come in. Is it this? Yeah. I don't even know how to print this. Whatever. Bye bye. Sorry, folks. Okay. I think we can get going right now. I think we can get going. Okay, there's some questions. Salva wants to know whether Tom has been watching the series on Erica from Candace. Anybody that thinks that's normal is out of their mind, in my opinion. By the way, what Candace is doing. Do you know? I don't know. He might be. I haven't talked to him about it. What she's been revealing, I revealed 3 months ago concerning Erica's maternal and paternal family. Her supposed mom, Lori, is Lebanese from the Abbas family in North Lebanon, Syria originally. Okay. Um, yeah, and Candace is married to a very shady family. And then what? Yeah, I don't care, man. I'm over that nonsense. I honestly just do not care. I do think she's out of her mind. Regardless of whether anything she says is true or not, absolutely out of her mind. I have a conspiracy theory about Candace Owens too, by the way. Um, Many conspiracy theories, and we're just asking questions. What's up, Jerome? How you doing? Suddenly, a Liverpool kit is on the screen. It's not suddenly. I was wearing it. I've been wearing it. Um, what's wrong with you? Ooh, Ooh, I'm sorry, man. Ooh, that's rough. Very sorry. Yeah. Bill Clinton just made my analytic theology peeps chuckle. As long as the meaning of is not is. You guys, the Lutheran satire stuff. Have you guys seen that? Sawa, I don't care. Honestly, like, my goodness, art not. It's got nothing to do with normal. It's part and parcel of investigative research. That's my line of work. Sawa, do your line of work, research it, investigate it, get it published to the world. If it's legitimate investigations, put it out there. Let the entire world see it. Not weird corners of the internet. Like actual, like not hearsay, not whatever. Like I'm all for that. I'm absolutely for that. If you got solid research, publish away. Publish away. Let it be known. Shout it from the rooftops. Hey, is my camera blurry to you guys? I'm aware you don't care. I blooming care. Okay, you should care. Millions of Christians are being deceived. Like they are deceived about what? You did not just make a reference between whatever you think is the deception that's happening about Erica Kirk and the TPUSA thing with Islam. You did not just do that. I'm not going to open my mouth. What I am going to do is just like not respond to that stuff. Okay. Okay. I got to check my internet here. I think my router is up for an upgrade. Not upgrade, update. Oh man, I'm sorry, brother. Those are rough. AHP. Anyways, Afghanistan is going to war with Pakistan. I saw your post about that. I had no idea about it until I saw your post. So are the Pakistanis Pakistan Zindabad? Pakistan declares open war. Maybe Pakistan wants all the military equipment left there by the US. So, folks, ABC News, Pakistan declares open war with Afghanistan as they trade deadly strikes. Both sides claimed to inflict heavy damage in the renewed fighting, which threatens a further destabilized region where terrorist groups such as Islamic State and Al Qaeda are trying to remobilize. What got this thing going is my. I don't trust any of them. That's the problem. Salva, I don't know what your frustration is that you're taking it out on me, but you might want to find someone to take it out on. And I mean this with all due respect. Um, if you have a contribution you're making to the body of Christ, do your research, do it good enough, do it reliable enough, and publish it to the world. It's not that complicated. If it's really, really good research, it's well documented, get it into the hands of mainline news agencies, get it into the hands of the Daily Wire, get it into the hands of Candace Owens, get it into the hands of Tucker Carlson. If you have really, really good research on that scale, get it into the hands of those people. Millions of people will see it. It's not complicated. And you will contribute to the body of Christ in whatever way you think you contribute to the body of Christ. Not difficult in regards to what I'm saying. If that's your contribution to the body of Christ, go ahead and do it. It's not mine. I think Candace Owens is a maniac. I think she's untrustworthy. Yeah, even if it's true, I think she's a nutter. That's it. It's not complicated for me. You tell me to grow up. I am grown up. I'm ignoring a nutty individual. That is grown up thinking. Following conspiratorial lines is not grown up thinking. And were you frozen? I was not frozen. And simply put, I'm not going to allow you to hijack my stream. Or on these issues. Simply, like, I'm not going to go back and forth with you and argue with you. These are the sorts of things I would prefer to talk about. Did you see the conversation between Scrivener and O'Connor? Alex seems like he's more and more moving the goalposts and losing track of basic points. I have not seen it. Okay, let me see. Glenn Scrivener. I'm looking forward, by the way. I'm looking forward to meeting Glenn at the Bless God Summit because I really like the work he does. I think Glenn is a solid thinker. Man, this is a 2 hour. I haven't seen. I haven't seen it, but I've seen the posts about it. Epic debate or failure to communicate. That's interesting. This is interesting. Okay,
The fact that you can.
Okay, let's check this out. Let us check this out. And here we go. I'm going to mute myself so there's no echo. Let's actually give it a go. I'm going to play, guys, I'm going to hit play. If there's an echo, let me know there's an echo. And then if there isn't, it's fine. But if there is, then I'll mute myself and then let the video go.
Point to like the gay rights movement, feminism.
There's an echo.
The fact that you can point to like the gay rights movement, to feminism, even to industrial abortion, and still say that, you know, ultimately there's some Christian influence going on here.
You're very much you're mischaracterizing me there. You mischaracterized me there quite substantially there.
But I just want to give my take on why the conversation broke down at certain points. And from my point of view, I think it's down to 2 words. Justin has hosted the second of his series of Uncommon Ground conversations. The first was between Richard Dawkins and Rowan Williams. The second is between myself, Gormless Gargoyle, and Alex O'Connor, Sexy Lucifer himself. I get that phrase, Sexy Lucifer, from Alex. I was texting him last night when the video came out, and I was like, how come your headshot on the thumbnail gets to look like you are Alex freaking O'Connor? You have ice in your veins. And my headshot just looks like I'm saying, would you like a cookie? Like, I don't know what I don't know what my look is. But yeah, and then he texted back to me. He says, yes, they seem to have gone for Sexy Lucifer for me. And I think that absolutely nails the look. And it's getting quite a lot of comments underneath the video. This might be the most talked about feature of the debate. So far, I am recording this about 18 hours after the video has gone live. I'm Glenn Scrivener from Speak Life. We like to see all things through the lens of Jesus. Are you subscribed to the channel? There are 1,000 things we could discuss coming out of this dialogue between myself and Alex O'Connor. Maybe we'll do further videos about this if people think it's interesting. But I just want to give my take on why the conversation broke down at certain points. And from my point of view, I think it's down to 2 words. We missed each other at points because I think we misunderstood what the other person meant by unthinkable and unfalsifiable. And it all started right at the very beginning when Justin asked Alex, can you still man Glenn Scrivener's position and say what he thinks? Listen in to a tremendous description of my position, which I think gets everything right apart from 1 word. And let's see if you can guess what the 1 word is.
It seems to me that Glenn is proposing what has come to be quite a popular view at the moment, especially among Christians, but also among some secular historians, that Western civilization, warts and all, as it were, the good stuff, the bad stuff, just the nature of the West, is more thoroughly indebted to Christianity than at least has been given credit for in the past, sort of 100 or 200 years in academia and Enlightenment thinking. That what we often perceive of as secular advancements against church doctrine and religious thinking is in fact a blossoming of the Christian spirit. So when we look at things like Enlightenment values and freedoms and equality and all of these kinds of things, and we think of them as, Enlightenment thinkers asserting these against religious influence, they're actually secretly wearing Christian clothing, hence the air we breathe, because we don't even notice that it's there. Because it's been so successful, in other words.
Yeah.
Did you catch what the 1 word is? It's the word blossoming. That everything we see in the West is Christian in an undifferentiated.
Okay, so I thought that video was going to go in a different... I assumed something else. So no, I haven't seen it. It's worth the watch, I think. 3 days ago, 159,000 views. Very good. But I do want to promote this event just out of spite for people who are shouting Ruslan down. Hey, ladies and gentlemen. The Blessed God Summit is coming up this week. The schedule's out. Michael Knowles dropped out. He was supposed to be there. I was excited for that. But I guess Michael Knowles won't be there because he got an invitation to the White House. And he couldn't turn the White House down. But the schedule's out. This is what it looks like. Thursday, March the 5th, it starts. Doors open at 10:30. There's a number of things. And then here, yours truly is speaking at 3 p.m. doing the main stage conversation. Okay. And after that is Dr. Gavin Ortland. There's a cool panel. Ruslan, Sean, Jared Smith, Sean McDowell. It's going to be a good conversation. Glenn speaking, right? 4:45. And then there's God Logic versus Jacob Hansen doing a debate, headline debate. And that's just night one. Sorry, that's day one. By the way, panel discussion, Wes Huff. 740 West Huff giving a talk. Then there's a discussion between West Huff, Glenn, Dr. Orlin, Dr. Sean McDowell. Should be really fun. That's just day one, guys. Fridays also looking really, really good. So excited. There's a free concert. Day 3 at night. When there's a concert. This concert, they've opened it up just for free. Anybody who wants to can show up and enjoy it, which is amazing. Amazing stuff. BlessGodSummit.com. Go check it out. Come hang out, meet folks, talk to us. Glenn Scrivener is not an Aussie. Hey, everybody, is my audio coming through well and we're good? Okay, we are doing a Q&A. Or we're what is going on? Yep, we're good. Audio solid. Everything's good. Everything's working. I wish I could go. I work Thursday and Friday and have memorial service at church on Saturday. Yeah, it'd be nice for you to come. I'm not frozen. Stop thinking I'm frozen. Hit the like button, folks. Let's get going. I was actually gonna share with you guys a video Ruslan posted. Not necessarily because of what Ruslan's saying, is because it's something I've been thinking about again. I mentioned this to you guys. I'll probably just come around to this constantly. And the idea behind this, let me relaunch. The idea behind this is that online Christians, just specifically, I'm going to talk to Christians, online Christians that are there. And give you an example. So I guess I haven't been paying too much attention to this, right? But I guess people have been criticizing Ruslan again because supposedly he's getting filthy rich from these conferences.
Okay, so there's some video.
These conferences he's been doing once a year. And I'm going to let Ruslan speak about this. It's just hilarious to me knowing the internal details of some of this stuff. It's just really funny that people are actually saying this stuff. Check this out. Let me test if this but yes, it works. Perfect.
and posts floating around the internet that are making some pretty wild accusations about me, specifically that I'm compromising the gospel, participating in darkness, and exploiting Christians for money. Now, those are all very serious charges and rather far from the truth as far as I'm concerned in terms of my day-to-day life and the truth of these situations. Last night, me and my wife were just talking about the summit that's coming up next week, and it's all primarily around the summit and the lineup of the summit and the VIP tickets to the summit. So we're going to unpack all of that very surgically. But last night, me and my wife were hanging out and having a conversation internally of like, hey, man, there's a lot of expenses coming up with this thing, and we're working with different funders and different people, and we'll likely take another financial loss on it. But the narrative within some pockets of the internet is that this is some massive money-making scheme for me. And the reality is it's not. Live events, generally speaking, don't make a lot of money, especially at this scale, especially at a place like the Seabird. And I'll unpack all of the math for that in a second. But first, let me just address this accusation that I'm compromising the gospel. This is primarily because we initially had Michael Knowles slated to do an armchair discussion with Gavin Ortlund on the differences between Catholicism and Protestants, right? And by the way, the whole schedule is online. You guys can check it all out for the Blessed God Summit. Now, here's something very fascinating about this, is that the way this is framed is that Michael Knowles was doing some sort of keynote or doing some sort of sermon at the event. He wasn't. This has been well known within our own community for a while. We've been talking about this for months. And Michael Knowles is actually not attending the event because he had something come up at the White House and they had to end up canceling with us because they can't, say no to the White House, which is fair. So Michael Knowles is actually going to be replaced by Trent Horn and my friend Josh Nadeau. This idea that sharing the stage with someone equals an endorsement of everything they believe or an endorsement of quote unquote evil deeds, I think is absolutely asinine. A public disagreement is not endorsement. A moderated conversation on the theological differences is not ecclesial unity. If sharing a platform equals endorsement, then every apologist who debates an atheist is endorsing atheism. And by the way, we're going to have Jacob Hansen, who's a LDS apologist, debating God logic on the Trinity. We're also going to have a panel with Dr. Sean McDowell and Jared Smith, who's an atheist. By that logic, we would be endorsing atheism and LDS. And that's not what's happening. And the second point that
So I need to clarify this, guys, because some of you guys are saying there's no audio. Some of you guys are fine with the audio. It's on my end, it's fine. Like Nick is clearly hearing the audio for him to be making these comments. And then Jesse's saying she doesn't have audio. And then Sal was saying she doesn't have audio. Yeah, it's how I doubt that you're the only person who said things about Ruslan. So can you guys, like, if I need, can you guys help me out with audio here? Because it is, when I was playing the video, was the audio coming through? And if it was, we're fine to continue. If not, I would have to restart the stream. So you can't share the stage with other Christians. Tell me about it. Hey, what if Michael Knowles was given a talk? Let's say let's imagine Michael Knowles was given a talk at the Blessed God Summit and he was talking about how Christians should be against abortion and like we should get rid of abortion. Like, this is what I mean. This is what I mean when it comes to the utter stupidity. This is no better word I can use for this. Of some people who are critical to these things. if I get invited to some whatever event, say I get invited to an event hosted by Roman Catholics and they want me to talk about the importance of apologetics or the importance of doing hermeneutics properly or something like that. And I go and I give my talk. Like, you guys actually think that's an issue? Like, I got to go and speak to a bunch of whatever, fill in the blank. Or do we not want to interact with people who disagree with us? We can't be that soft. Naive is what I was thinking. But like, are we that snowflakey where you don't want to interact with, like, you don't want to sit across Michael Knowles or Trent Horn and speak about the differences that you have? Like, or is it that bad? And is that what people are criticizing him over? You're going to have Michael Knowles come in. You're not a real Christian. Like, what? Are you guys dumb? You're charging a lot of money for a conference that costs a lot of money. I can't. This, like, oh my gosh. By the way, guys, I can make an entire video on some of the comments that I've gotten. I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar that with the partnership with Logos Bible Software. So we made I made that video I actually made a video explaining something, then I turned it into an ad. And we've run that ad on Instagram. You guys should see the comments that are in there. Like, people saying, why is this with money? Freely you have received, freely give. That is one of the comments. Why is this software cost anything? Freely you have received, freely give. That's a comment. Can't believe you're making money off the people of God. Like, nobody should ever charge for the Bible. You realize? You realize the nonsense behind comments like that? That's the world we live in. Do I need to explain those to people? Yeah. Christians are always trying to make money somehow. Yep. That must be it. That must be it. Oh yeah. Oh, this is good. You can tell. I like this actually a lot. You can tell. Wow. Let me reread that. You can tell how self-secure you are or are not by who you eat with, debate with, drink with, and smoke with. People are lazy. Very, very good. Very good. So let's continue hearing what Ruslan has to say about some of the criticism he's got. By the way, he breaks down all the financial stuff on this. And I look, I know these things because I talked to Ruslan. I just want to say shame on those people who very flatly lie about these things. Shame.
That I want to get into is this idea that this is about greed. This is about me trying to make a fortune, or the artist trying to make a fortune, the speaker trying to make a fortune. That is not true. Okay, so let me break down just some of the math on this. Okay, so if you guys were paying attention, those of you guys that went to the Les Got Summit, we're doing two things. One, we're doing an outdoor amphitheater concert out here on the finale night, and then two, we are at the Seabird Resort. Now, this is not a church conference. This is not a church service. This is at a premium resort on the beach in Oceanside at a very nice place. Now, why do we do this at a very nice place? Well, because we don't want to be connected to any specific church. My home church is not big enough to do it, and we wanted to have a neutral ground for people to participate. We also know that so many people, honestly, are never going to take any sort of time away, do any sort of vacation for themselves, and we figure, hey, if we can do a summit and they could double down as a vacation, this is actually really good for many people to recharge and to go to a nice event. So having said that, when you understand what the Seabird is, it is a luxury resort property. You will quickly know, anyone that's ever done events, the venue alone is costing us 6 figures, well into the 6 figures, okay? That's just for the venue, okay? That's not counting the production that goes into this, meaning audio, video, for 2 stages, mind you. So we have this venue and then the finale, which is a free concert, whereas the Oceanside Amphitheater. Then we have this on Saturday night, which, by the way, you guys are all invited to, totally free. If you're anywhere near Southern California, come get your, come hang out with us. There's no tickets. You got to use RSVP on Eventbrite. It helps so many people. So that's not counting the production for 2 different stages. One is outdoors. That's not counting the staff. That's not counting me personally maxing out all of my Delta, American, and Southwest miles to get speakers there. That's not counting insurance. And that's not counting the meals that are going to be provided for the VIPs. Now, some people are like, hey, Ruslan, why are you charging so much for the VIP tickets? I think there was $700 or $600 we sold out. It's a premium price. Well, what's left out of this is that we last year gave away over 100 free scholarships to folks who couldn't come because of finances. So that's 100 families from all over the country. Folks that were like, hey, I can get myself there. I just can't afford this final price. So the VIP pretty much all of it offsets the 100 plus free tickets that we give out. Many of these critiques and many of these takedown videos omit this detail. And that's the question to me, generally speaking, is like, omission is a lie. Like, if you're omitting that what we're doing here is we have a premium tier of people that are willing to pay more because they know that we give out 100 plus tickets. That's significant. That matters. So what people are paying for on the VIP side is they understand that some of that funds is going towards the 100 free scholarships. That's offsetting our expenses. They're also getting some VIP meals. They're also getting like a goodie bag. Last year, personally, when we did this event, we did it at the Westin, which is, again, another nice resort. I personally lost nearly $40,000. And looking at the numbers this year, I'll likely lose money again. I might even have to dip into my own.
Did you guys hear that? Let me rewind that for you. Look what he says here.
Down videos omit this detail. And that's the question to me, generally speaking, is like, omission is a lie. Like, if you're omitting that what we're doing here is we have a premium tier of people that are willing to pay more because they know that we give out 100 plus tickets. That's significant. That matters. So what people are paying for on the VIP side is they understand that some of that funds is going towards the 100 free scholarships. That's offsetting our expenses. They're also getting some VIP meals. They're also getting like a goodie bag. Last year, personally, when we did this event, we did it at the Westin, which is, again, another nice resort. I personally lost nearly $40,000. And looking at the numbers this year, I'll likely lose money again. I might even have to dip into my own personal savings to pull all this off, because there's a bunch of expenses that come up when you're dealing with the city, when you're dealing with police who need to be at a public outdoor event, when you're dealing with needing to add proper power to power all the equipment. All of that costs a lot of money. So last year I lost money, likely will lose money again. There's also left out that kids under 8 are free, which is, those are seats and those are food that folks are going to have, right? And so this is not something that is a moneymaker for me. Last year was not a moneymaker for me. This is not a moneymaker for me. I am not paid to do this event, okay? I don't make money off of this event. We lose money off of this event. We lose money off of this event because I believe in the power of live events, and I believe in then getting people together, building community, having a place for the speakers to come and also be recharged, poured into. That is important for me. And so this is not a money-making thing. I think people think that I'm getting rich off of this. I'm not. I'm losing money off of this. I explained all of this last year, and every single year there's another series of takedown videos that are just honestly ignorant. And they refuse to actually reach out or tell the full story, which is the 100 plus people that are getting free tickets, which is, hey, we priced the VIP because people want it. And by the way, that's the first thing that's sold out. There's also been some controversy of, why are you charging for a meet and greet? Here's the thing, and I'm going to show you guys proof of this in a second with some testimonials from last year. Anyone who came to the event last year, anyone that's ever came to anything I've been at will tell you that specifically last year was one large 3-day big meet and greet. That we don't hide out in the green rooms, that I've never hid out in the green room. I've never avoided people. I end up meeting as many people as I can. In the VIP, there is a opportunity to hang out with me and chat in a separate area, right? Do like a Q&A type of thing. And last year, people loved it. It was like over 100 people that wanted to hang out, wanted to get their picture. At an event like this, where there's gonna be well over 500, probably 600 people here. At an event like this, I can't meet every single person. And so we give people, hey, I want to pay extra. I understand that you guys are bringing out families and helping other people get there that can't get there. And I'd like to have some time to hang out with Ruslan. That's what that's for. You're not paying to meet me. I'm there. Anyone can meet me. Anyone can meet pretty much any of the speakers. They're walking around. So you're not paying to meet anybody. It's a separate earmark thing that gives the people who pay VIP to hang out. Okay, so this subsidizes the families who attend for free. That's not partiality. That's how these events get funded. And people will bring up James 2 and talking about favoritism inside the church and giving spiritual preference to the wealthy. This is not a church service, okay? This is not a church service. It's a ticketed event at a private venue. That's what's happening here. We're not prioritizing those with funds to be without those with funds. Anybody can come up and meet people here. And so that's the reality of this event. So again, just to go over the numbers, you're talking a 6-figure venue. You're talking a lot in AV and lights. You're talking about flights for everybody. You're talking about additional food, additional snacks. You're talking about bringing in additional electricity, which we have to do. We're talking about uniformed police officers for the outdoor festival that we're doing, which, by the way, again, I'm doing a free festival with Jake, Indie Tribe, and KB. Okay, there are certain expenses they have where they can't, they can't not pay their sound guys and the people that are coming out to run their light rigs or whatever. So there's some expenses that we have to occur there. And by the way, the beautiful part about this is almost every single person that's doing this event is doing it as a favor or is doing it as a trade or is doing it at a very reduced rate. And no speaker has asked for any specific payment.
Did you guys hear that? That's true. In regards to how it's coming together.
On this. And so the funny part about all this is I responded to all of this. I responded to all this last year, explaining all of this, right? I responded to someone that posted this on X and gave an explanation. I saw other people explaining, screen shooting my explanation. And I've explained this constantly gets pulled up. Videos from 5 or 6 years ago where I was doing business advice and coaching for aspiring Christian rappers. This always gets plucked out, ignoring the context of one, how old those videos are. Clearly, I look very different. I got long hair in some of them. Some of them are as old as pre-pandemic. Secondly, that I was not making ministry content. I was specifically helping Christian rappers on how to monetize their audiences so they can make a living off of what they love to do, which that's not...
So I'm going to... Yeah, he goes into some of the details there. But it's just hilarious to me. It's so funny to me that people don't understand how events run and are about... I don't know what to say. These are evidences, like these are all evidence that a good chunk of people don't know how to rationally think at all. So I guess I'll comment on this. I used to go to so many conferences, can't stand them. Sorry, they're all cringe to me. The hype, the ongoing worship on individuals or individual you. My response to this will be, maybe the problem is not conferences, it's that you overdid it. And then now you have a reaction to it. Is that a possible reason why you have this aversion to conferences? Very likely. Are there people that are perpetual conference hoppers? Yes, clearly. That's a bad thing. People shouldn't do it. But to immediately think, I think that it's about the worship of individuals or whatever like that, that's not true. It could be, maybe you were doing that. Like when I go to conferences, it's not about that. I don't go to many conferences. Because like I have way more things to do in my life rather than to chase conferences. Right? Simple. So yeah, there's a balance. There has to be a balance. I've learned quite a bit of really, really good things at conferences. And they've been necessary. Like it makes sense to say, hey, we're going to get 1,000 people into a room together and have some people teach them, rather than have that person do that 10 times for 100 people each time. Okay, you literally said you used to go to so many conferences, but you didn't overdo it? Yeah, at this point, I just think, Sawa, you just want to be a contrarian. Like, it's hilarious to me. Oh, forget it, man. Then don't say you used to go to so many conferences. It's not that complicated. Praise with Reason 2 will be based on praise. I didn't know we were calling it Praise to Reason 2. It's not a sequel. That's essentially what Ruslan is doing. By guys, he said he lost $40,000 last year on the event. Let that register. Let that register. We might, and we'll pay you with love and hugs. Okay, where's this guy? Where's this guy? There's a guy here. This guy. Who's this guy? What version of the 44,000 plus Christian denominations are you referring to? Are you still here? 79.95. Still in the chat? I've dropped the link. Why don't you call in? We should call it Praise with Reason 2. No apologies. It's brilliant. If people want to do a discount, they only get Reason. Praise is extra. It should be the other way around. If people want a discount, they only get the praise part. All the reasoning part, they don't get. That's hilarious. Now that's merchandising. You gotta pay for praise. You guys are horrendous. Everyone's in the goofy mood today. Can't take you seriously. I want to take myself seriously. I make a serious comment and it turns into a joke. I don't know what to do. Did that guy do a hit and run? He just jumped in here and asked me what part of 44,000 plus denominations I belong to and ran away. Yeah. You're right. Sawa, you're right. I'm not a critical thinker at all. I'm as dumb as they come. Yes. I have no critical thinking skills. I appear to lean on what I think. Yes. I mean, I'm not going to lean on what you think. Everybody leans on what they think. That's a tautology. Of course I lean on what I think. What do you want me to lean on? What you think? Like, you didn't say anything bright there, by the way. With all due respect. I gave you a term there. Tautology. Look it up. I'm going to get really sarcastic. You throw comments my way like that, I'm going to get really sarcastic. Yes, you're absolutely right. Zero critical thinking on my end. How much does it cost? Go look on the website. You'll see the prices. There's a breakdown there. Yes, link. Never used on before. Okay. It's a link. You click on it, you call in, and then you share your views. So, and then we can have a conversation about which one of the denominations I belong to and whether that even matters. Okay, thoughts on Preston Sprinkle? Preston's a cool dude. Dude seems to get a lot of flack from both the left and the right. I guess for Preston, he loves being in. He loves being there. He doesn't mind it. And probably views himself in the sense of, hey, I'm following Jesus, and following Jesus means you're going to upset both people you agree with and people who disagree with you. Did you see his conversation with Sean McDowell about pronouns and identity? Was that a new one? I think they did one a long time ago. And yeah, I like Preston. I don't agree with everything he says. Preston is orthodox. I mean, he does. The other day I was listening to something. He just wrote a book on women in ministry and all that. And I had a question there, like, why is it that I got to be fair with my criticism? Could it be the case that because of someone's personality, they always keep picking contrarian sides? So, like the hell debate, he wrote a book on hell, defending the traditional view, ended up becoming an annihilationist. I don't know where he stood on the women in ministry issue, but it seems like he leans a certain way now. Again, I don't want to put words in the mouth of Preston, but I've interacted with Preston. I think Preston's a great guy. I've learned a lot from Preston. He's challenged me quite a bit. I think he does valuable ministry. I think he brings valuable insight to the church and how we ought to be interacting with the LGBTQ community. And what are things that they say that are valid? What are things that they say that are invalid? And so I really enjoy Preston's work. Those are my thoughts on Preston. I really like Preston. Had cigars with Preston in Dallas in 2017 at the Rethinking Hell conference. Really nice guy. Looking forward to. I've invited. There's an open offer for me to take Preston out for barbecue because he is a quarter Armenian. For those who might not know, Preston Sprinkle is a quarter Armenian. And I had cigars with him at his house when I went to his conference. Those are my thoughts. You're being silly, Arthur. I'm not being silly. If your comment is not a silly comment, the fact that you don't think I'm a critical thinker, I'm going to agree with you. I'm not a critical thinker. I'm an idiot. And so there's zero critical thinking skills involved in my mind. I lean on what I think, and I just think I'm always right. Simple as that. Yeah. That's where we're at. The link is pinned. Then I've seen that combo. I think I've seen this conversation. It's 6 months ago. I've seen it. As an Irishman, I would love to tag along if you ever take Preston out for food. Yeah, I would love to. Again, I've told Preston multiple times when you end up in LA, I'd love to take you out. Waiting for our friend who wants to know which one of the 44,000 or 45,000 denominations I belong to find the pinned link to call in. If he's going to call in. If you're not going to call in, let me know you're not going to call in so I don't have to wait for you. You're trolling me. Here, I guess I'll. It's at the top. I don't know, but here you go. Here's the link. There you go. That's the link. I just posted it again. You can call it. Question: is it possible? Is it possible to be pro death penalty in principle, but to oppose it in the USA if one does not believe the state is righteous to execute it? That debate popped up on X this week. Absolutely, there's no question about that. And now, if people are talking specifically in the USA, like I actually know people like that. If I had a significant amount of evidence, then I would take that position. I would say that's an appropriate position to take in certain contexts, in certain countries, to say that, hey, there's an unjust system here. There's an unjust system here, and so therefore, hang on, this is hilarious because I've gotten a call and both of them are from guys named Tom. I'm dead right now. This is hilarious. Let me bring you all in. Oh man, why did I do that? You guys, not supposed to be locked. Where is it? Uno segundo. There we are. And we're gonna bring this gentleman in. Hello. And we're gonna bring that guy in.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Is your name Tom?
Tom.
Yeah, it's funny because
yes, sir.
the other guy that called in, Tom. So I thought I thought my computer was glitching because both the guys' calls I got in said Tom on them, and I was like, what?
Hey, bro, you look older, so I'll give you the name.
Whoa, relax.
Hey, listen, if you listen, I was just calling to be a troll. So if you guys are having a serious conversation, I'll drop off and I'll listen. Okay?
What are you gonna troll on?
I'm okay with that. Nothing. I was just gonna generally talk. But if you guys are having a serious conversation, I'll hop on later. So enjoy it. Tom.
Yeah, okay. One Tom gives way to the other Tom. There we go, Tom. So go for it, brother. Tell us about yourself.
I just had the question of I think the title was to the live feed was Christianity is true. And my question would be which denomination are you talking about or like in general or because I see a little bit of Protestantism being connected to Catholicism and not really looking like the first century church in the book of Acts. So that's what my question was.
Okay, are you a Christian?
Yeah, I gave my life to the Lord in 1995.
Oh, nice. Very cool. And what tradition would you say you belong to?
I was raised Catholic, Roman Catholic. And then I came to faith in when I was 25, 1995, and with the Protestant church at Calvary. And
Harry Chapel.
Then yes, sir. And then came into basically this understanding of what the first century church looked like, and started resembling them more than the traditional Christian church.
What can you give me some more details as to that? Like what would be the difference as to what the first century
Acts chapter 15 basically says what to do with the Gentiles coming into the faith. And that's the Jerusalem Council, if people are familiar with it, Acts chapter 15. So Paul and Barnabas go up to Jerusalem to talk to the council, and Peter gets up and talks, and then James gets up and makes the declaration of saying, we'll start these new believers coming into the congregation assembly of the Lord, into the faith with these four things, and then they'll hear Moses every Sabbath. So to me, that tells me what kind of mindset they had for Gentiles coming into the belief, into faith.
and how to train them and kind of walk with them through this journey called a walk.
Okay. So I'm still trying to understand. There's a little bit of an echo, guys. Forgive me. I'm trying to figure that out. I think I figured it out. What would you say is, like, I understand the Acts 15 Jerusalem Council, but how is it that you practice your Christianity that's different from the way you were practicing it?
With
At
Roman
Calvary Chapel.
Catholicism.
No, at Calvary Chapel.
Well, for one, we didn't hear Moses every Sabbath, for one. And yes, he did tell me to repent of my sins, and I did that night, and God cleaned me up from being alcoholic, drugs, carousing with women, all that stuff. And that night changed my life forever. And I believe that was just a stepping stone into something more deeper and with him and the relationship with him. And I practice the dietary law. I practice the feast and festivals of Israel. I practice Sabbath. And basically, I mean, that's it from the basics, basically, really.
Okay, so I'm just, guys, I got to mute myself when he's talking so it doesn't echo. So sorry for the echoing. I don't know why that's even happening. I can't figure it out. So Tom, so essentially you're keeping the law. How do you square that with the book of Galatians?
Well, I think we have to understand the first century, and even today, we have the Jews basically putting the oral law over the written law, and I mean the Torah, and the oral law is what Paul was coming against, kind of like in Acts chapter 15 and 14 and 13. It's like the circumcision party was coming after them wherever they were going, and they were telling them you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this in order to be, a Jew, and that's.
He might have gotten a call, guys. So
Yeah, I got a call. Sorry about that. We had the circumcision party coming around them and telling them the new believers had to do this, that, and the other. And I think we have to remember Galatians, Corinthians, Romans. He was writing to a Gentile church, and he was trying to be more like a a lawyer for them, because he was a law student, wasn't he? Yeah. So the Mosaic, the Torah versus oral law, totally different, because I don't put any man's word above the Lord's word. I don't put any tradition or doctrine before the Lord. It's like I want to exemplify what Jesus walked out, and also want to exemplify how the new believers were walking in the first century after the ascension and after salvation, because there's no way that the law gives life. Jesus is the only one that gives life and eternal life with him. And so that's basically it in a nutshell.
do you think if a Christian is not keeping the dietary laws, or doesn't keep Sabbath in the way the Old Testament prescribes it, then they are therefore in sin?
You're only accountable for what you know. And yeah, God is a righteous judge, but also there's grace and mercy. And I think that's what he has. He showed Adam grace and mercy all the way from the very beginning. He showed grace and mercy to Noah. He showed grace and mercy to Abraham. So grace and mercy have always been around. And I believe that's why he's the God and I'm not. And to answer your question, no, I think God's a God of grace and mercy, in that he will judge the people he needs to judge on both sides.
Yeah, like for example, I don't keep dietary laws. I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to keep the Sabbath. We definitely don't need to circumcise our sons under the new covenant. And there's a covenantal difference, and I think I'm biblically justified in doing so, considering that we are under a new covenant, and the new covenant looks different, and it's not like the covenant of old, like the national covenant under Israel. I mean, I don't want to. You're pretty familiar with these things, it seems to me, and there's a justification too as to why we as Christians live the way we do. So. Yeah, that's why the sin question is when I say, do you think it's sin and rebellion against God? Your answer to me there is, it seems like you don't want to take a hard stance for some reason.
I'm not judge. I'm not the giver of the word. All I am is a believer trying to walk with Christ as best as I can, and the instructions that He gives me. But a question to you would be, who's the new covenant for, biblically? Not just what our pastors say or commentaries say, but biblically, who's the new covenant for? And a verse would be great too.
Yeah, I think the new covenant is for both Jew and Gentile. And I think it finds its culmination in God's promise to Abraham that He will bless the nations of the world. So, yeah.
Any verse that you could back up?
Yeah, the one I paraphrased in Genesis, that God is going to bless the world, all the nations of the world through Abraham. I think that's the fulfillment of the new covenant in Christ.
Right. So the new covenant, and this is just verses that are called out to me, was Jeremiah 31:31, and also the writer of Hebrews copies that section of verses. There's more than one verse, but that verse says that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. And so if we are grafted in, if we are adopted in, and we are a part of the commonwealth of Israel, then we are part of that body of Israel also, spiritual Israel, as in not being in the land, being dispersed, being a Gentile coming into the faith, because we didn't have Him. We are far off. Now He has brought us closer, right? So that's where I get, like, I take the word literally as far as I could take it, and then we take it from there, right? But Scripture interprets Scripture, and so that's the way that I view it. And I'm not going to take a hard stance on judging somebody's heart, because I can't see their heart. Intentions are there, but and some people don't study the word, and I'm not bragging on it myself, because I don't study the word. I study it a little bit, but not as much as a lot of other people. But I take the Bible very seriously, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's no disagreement there. I think we should take the Bible seriously. The Bible is the authoritative word of God in our lives, and so we ought to take it seriously. I think the disagreements generally when they come up on these sorts of stuff is the hermeneutical and interpretive approaches we're taking to this. Now, when you say we have been engrafted in, we've been grafted in, what is it that we've been grafted into?
The olive tree, and that's going to be in Jeremiah chapter 11. I think it's verse 16 and 17 also, and He calls Israel the green olive tree. I'm going off my memory, so I did drugs in the 80s, so sometimes it misfires.
That's understandable. Yeah, I mean, my mind immediately went to Romans 9 in regards to the grafting in language. And I mean, there's a clear distinction there between, those who say they are part of Israel, according to the flesh, according to biological descendancy, is what he means there. Who aren't actually, because they reject Jesus, the Son of God, versus those who would, in that case, there would be individuals like Paul who would be both biologically descendants of Abraham and spiritually, because he establishes that in chapter 4.
Amen.
And then we, the Gentiles, have been grafted in to that tree. But it's the Abrahamic tree is the mindset there, and this is where I would distinguish it because Abraham comes before Moses, and I would distinguish that between Abraham and the Mosaic Law, and because I think the author of the book of Hebrews does a very similar thing when he speaks about Jesus being a greater high priest than Levi, because Levi pre-existed in Abraham. And then he makes that connection with Melchizedek, and Jesus is in the order of Melchizedek and not in the order of Levi. So this is a bypassing of the entire Levitical priesthood, which is what the Mosaic covenant is all about. This is why partly I would establish the concept of this is a covenant beyond. It's greater than Moses. The covenant we're a part of is a greater covenant than Moses. Another passage that comes to my mind is when he speaks about the old covenant is passing away along with everything that comes with it, because something greater than it has come, which is the covenant we find ourselves in. And again, we can get into the details of that. By the way, I have no problem at all with Christians who, because of their conscience, have decided to keep Torah, to keep law. This is why I asked you the question I asked you in regards to, do you think Christians who don't keep it are in sin or in rebellion towards God? Yes. Because if a Christian, I actually have an interview with a friend of mine who's a Messianic rabbi Eduardo, and he keeps Torah.
Yes.
And he's a very dear friend of mine, and there's no issues. Awesome. There's no issues there. If a Christian says, "Hey, look, I feel convicted in my heart, and I don't want to eat pork," God bless you. Someone actually asked me this question last night at Bible study. They're like, "What do you think about this?" And I said, "Look, if you feel convicted in your heart to do or not to do certain things, God bless you. I'm not going to try to convince you to eat pork with me. As a matter of fact, if we go out to eat, I probably won't get pork. I probably just eat chicken or beef with you and lamb. I love lamb. It's to me, these issues become real issues and places of division, if you want to say it like that, where fellowship really breaks down, I would say, is when we start saying, if you're not doing this, you're in rebellion towards God. You're in sin. You're violating the law of God. But if it's a conscience issue, I think Paul gives complete freedom. Like he says, let those who are strong in faith not judge those who are weak. I don't like those translations, by the way, between strong and weak. I think people misunderstand it. I think it should be something like sensitive or less sensitive or more sensitive, something like that. And so I don't pass judgment over people who don't eat or drink or, as he says in Galatians, if some people consider one day to be holy and set apart for the Lord, let them do also to the Lord. And if some people consider all days alike, let them do so unto the Lord. Because the direction of a Christian's life is towards that end. It is for the glory of God, is for the honor and praise of God. Amen. And so whether I'm going to eat or drink or refrain from eating and drinking, the idea is not the eating and drinking in itself, but it's more, am I doing this unto the Lord, which is where the worship aspect comes in. And so I think Christians in the church ought to actually allow for that kind of a freedom. And if we actually did that, we'd have a lot more unity, I would say. And again, I don't want to kind of go into kind of what your experience has looked like and all that. But I think quite often we speak out of our experiences, and maybe sometimes they're not great. I've just had really good experiences, I suppose, throughout my Christian life. I've predominantly been at one church, and things have generally been kept in a pretty decent balance. I've just had really good examples of that. Let me ask you another question, because I've had conversations online with people who've come at me from a perspective that you're coming at me with, and then I've asked them questions about the deity of Christ, if they think Jesus is God, if they believe in the Trinity and all this stuff, and then they've started rejecting those things. Where would you say you stand on those matters?
I see Jesus in the very first verse of the Bible when it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." That word there for God is Elohim, and then there's an aleph and a tav for et, and it's right in the middle. I just see him from the beginning to the end, and in the end, it says, to have access to the tree of life, that you do the commandments and have the testimony of Yeshua. And it's all throughout from Genesis to Revelation. And even in the book of Acts, I was talking about the book of Acts before. And the book of Acts, I think it's in chapter 9 and 10 where Peter has this vision when he says, nothing has ever touched his lips that have been unclean. That's the TIV version, the Tom inspired version, right? But we see that he kept that there was freedom in Christ, yeah, but he kept, and all the love, sonship, all this is covenant language. And to keep covenant with God, you have to sacrifice yourself, like Romans chapter 12 says. You be a living sacrifice. So it's like denying the flesh for me. And I don't know if I'm answering the question or not, because I only have a couple minutes because I'm at work. So I apologize, or else I would love to talk to you all afternoon.
Yeah, no, I
Did I
appreciate
answer
that.
your
Yeah. So you did answer my Jesus divinity question, because I think that's a big question. Again, because I've come into conversations with people who start talking to me about the dietary stuff, and then 5 minutes later I find out they're denying the deity of Jesus, and I'm like, wait, hang on, I don't even want to talk to you about dietary stuff. We got to talk about this gigantic issue in theology that you're rejecting.
Amen.
Because that's more important, right? Like priority wise, that's more important, because that's actually, in my opinion, a salvific issue. Where Christian disagreement on dietary stuff has always been there. And it's very clearly always been there. It's there in Acts 15, and they're trying to figure it out. Specifically, you get the Pharisaic believers. It says some of the disciples were Pharisees, and they were telling the Gentiles to become circumcised. And so there's a whole conversation about that bleeds into, and there's a whole conversation about what they can eat and what they can't eat. Paul's clarification later on, some more details about that. But like, we can have that. That's always been a part of the Christian community, in my opinion. I think we've always had individuals that have, in one way or another, I'm not sure whether people have kept like full, and I know you're limited on time, but like, it's obvious to me you're not keeping certain laws just by looking at you, because you don't have a beard. So the kind of quantification would be important to.
Yeah, so the 613 laws in the Torah, 279 of them are basically, it's like 45% of them are just for the temple. And then there's other ones for landowners or being in the land. I'm not in the land. I wish I was. There's other ones for being a king. There's other ones for being women, men. So it's really, when Jesus says my yoke is easy and my burden is light, that's why it's a relationship. And we see that relationship with Abraham, but also we see that relationship with Paul in Acts chapter 21, where James tells him, and the second time James tells him to do something, or orders him to do something. And it's like, you take these four guys that are under a vow, and that he cut his hair also, he was under a Nazarite vow. Take these four guys to the temple, so that way it proves to the people that you are not talking bad about Moses, that you are not saying this or that. And it's kind of like what we're in today. And I see a parallel to the first century to where we're at today, because lawlessness, like, how do we define sin? In 1 John chapter 3, verse 4, it says, lawlessness is sin. Sin is lawlessness. So lawlessness, that's a total opposite of being lawful, being in covenant with God. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to maintain that covenant, not maintain it as in keeping it as in I'm doing anything that he says, because a lot of that stuff doesn't apply to me. Like in Leviticus, the priest. Yes, we're called priests and kings, but I'm not of the Levitical priesthood. I wasn't born into that. I wasn't trained for that. There's no temple. So it's kind of interesting to me about, like, under the law, even that phrase under the law, 4QMMT, it's part of the Qumran cave excavations. It talks about the law, under the law, and it uses that title. It could be used as one of those titles, and that's the only other place in the first century that it is written about under the law. Under the law means under the oral law, because Paul's the only one that talks about it. Paul's coming from that viewpoint of, yeah, you're going to put yourself under the law, like keeping, like, I can't cook at your house because you probably cook pork, so that means that your dishes are dirty. That's being kind of ridiculous to me. That's being more Hasidic than anything, I believe. Pastor Rabbi Eduardo will probably be able to tell you a lot more about that. But I listened to Rabbi Eduardo also, and man, I respect that guy so much. I respect you so much, and I thank you so much for just being able to talk about Jesus, Yeshua, with you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my brother. Yeah, I think these are important conversations, and again, from my perspective, I think they do come down to a conscience issue, and I think Christians are given that freedom. I really think the New Testament teaches that, and I really wouldn't like even try to convince someone to live their Christian life the way I live it, if their conscience is bothered, and would just allow them to live in that kind of a freedom. Yeah, I appreciate you calling in. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts and ideas with us. And God bless you, my brother.
God bless you. And this is the first time that I've ever done anything like this. So that's why I was asking about the pin, because I've never done this before. So you're the first one. So I appreciate you.
So usually when somebody says it's a pinned comment in the comment section, if you scroll like at the top, it's just there. It stays there.
Okay.
When they pin something, it stays there. So you can just click on it and go in. Well, look, I hope you had a good experience. Since it's your first time, I think the first times always are important, because if it's a good experience, then we're good to go.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
God bless you too. Okay. Yeah. Look, I think that's reasonable and important conversation. I appreciate that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that kind of give and take between two brothers who disagree on something, and can do it with smiles on their faces and good tone. Just I like Tom. Tom had a great presence about him. Let me put it that way. Great presence about him. In my opinion, the Holy Spirit shone through that brother, even in the midst of that disagreement. Let me know what you guys think about that. I saw that. I felt that. And that was good. Sounds like a Hebrew roots movement to me in some ways. Maybe so. Look, I think we have to be very careful before we immediately classify people and put them in certain categories. Even though it sounds like something. Oh, that guy sounds... I've said things to people where they're like, bro, that sounds Catholic, or that sounds Orthodox or something. And then I've said plenty of things where a lot of my friends go, man, that sounds like you're a Calvinist. I'm like, why? Because I believe God is sovereign. Like that's it. That's your entire category of what Calvinists sound like. And I say that because it could just be a conscience issue for the Christian. That's it. That matters. So before we go, oh, your Hebrew roots. Oh, notice, like I could have said, are you a Messianic Jew? Like, do you go to Messianic? Like, I would tell this brother to go to Messianic services. Like, I hope he does, that instead of being churchless, instead of not having a community of brothers around you, why don't you go and gather with a community of brothers and sisters who agree with you and worship Jesus the way you do? So my recommendation would be, hey, find a Messianic congregation you could be a part of and honor and worship Jesus in that context. Have I ever met a bad Tom? This guy says it like his name is actually Tom. Your name is not Tom. Do I need to remind you of this? Do we need to have a conversation with your dad and mom about how they did not name you Tom? Guys, I don't know what's going on with the echo thing. I'm pretty decent at figuring out these sorts of issues. But like, this is beyond me. Like, why there is an echo, considering that I have use echo cancellation on. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Like last week, you guys remember Sean called in, and we didn't have an echo. I don't know. I might have to reset. My, which is crazy because I haven't really changed much about it. It's just I reset it when I got it. My mixer, and let's see if that helps in any way, gets rid of the issue. It might be an update issue. It might be that Ecamm needs to update their software for it to work well with the Rodecaster Pro 2. That's an option. Let me see if there's updates. Nope, you're up to date on your Ecamm is what it says. Is there an update on the Rodecaster? Yeah, it's his firmware. It's up to date on the Rodecaster. So, yeah, I don't know. We need to solve this, solve this, solve this, solve this. What? What's your problem, man? Okay. Tom, you're more than welcome to call in now, I guess. Maybe when you call in, we can figure that out. So I have this on Rodecaster Pro main. Okay. Maybe more. I know Tom was telling me that that's what his name is, by the way. He was telling me that when he uses this, he has it on the section that says Rodecaster Pro 2 chat. So I have it on that now. Hopefully the audio is coming through for you guys well. Maybe if and when he calls in, we can test it. Not contest it, but can test it. You can call back in, Tom. It's okay. Don't get offended. Tom is just bitter about getting alphas at the barbecue when Arthur took over the grill. That's because man. That's when you get a pack of alphas. It's an interesting dynamic, a very interesting dynamic. Also, Tom today told me in a separate group conversation, he said, Arthur, don't ever change. He said, this is why I love you and I would never want you to change. He said that to me. And that's very important. Homeboy kicked me off my own grill because you were doing it wrong. Who's the better grill master, Tom or Arthur? Arthur, 100%. Tom would say this. Tom would absolutely say this. I'm not saying this in an arrogant way. There's many things I'm not good at that Tom is excellent at. But by the way, Tom got a big shout out yesterday on the radio. Just want to put that out there. but Arthur is the better grill master. Let's see if we can fix this echo problem. Echo, 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 echo. Can you talk?
Hi, 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 hi.
See, when I have it on. No, hang on.
You. Can you hear me? Me.
System audio is on. No, it's not. Go ahead and talk.
How are you?
It's funny because this is nuts. I can see your voice coming through, but I can't hear it. Can the audience hear it?
Can you guys hear me? Me.
Are you messing with me?
Can you hear my voice?
I can't hear you. I'm gonna kick him off. I don't know if he's messing with me or not. You can't hear him. Why can't I hear him? So they can hear you, but I can't hear you.
Hello.
What the heck? So they can hear me, they can hear you, but I can't hear you. But you can hear me.
I can hear you.
I'm dead here, man. Thank God. Okay, now I can hear you. I guess I figured that one out. Talk.
Hello.
There's nothing. Stop.
Can you hear me now? Can you talk?
I can talk when you're not talking. So this is a exercise in humility and patience to wait for the other person to finish what they said.
So what
And
happens
then
if I talk?
then it starts echoing like crazy. But let me see if I can fix it. Go
Okay,
ahead and have a conversation. I'm going to mute myself and you
So
can
you
talk.
can. It's okay. You can just go on mute and I'll chat a little bit. You know what sucks about calling in with your phone is I don't see any of the comments. Like I can't see anybody commenting anything. And then if I try to go to my YouTube app to see the comments, then my face goes off the screen, I think, right? That's what happens. So it like throws me off. Unless how about this? Can you still see me? Oh, okay, so if I scroll up, like if I scroll up but don't close out the page, kind of like when you're closing out the apps, I guess that's a hack where I can keep it open. So, man, I got some good news to share, man. I just dropped off grills to every single Aria Meat Market location. Signed the dotted line. We're in business, ladies and gentlemen. We're in business. So I'm going to make an announcement where people will get a little gift if they go buy the grills from Aria. So
Can you make an
excellent.
announcement here where they're going to get what the gift is that they're going to get?
Yeah, the gift they're going to get. The gift they're going to get is what you got yesterday, which is an extra carry-on bag with their brand new order. So they have 2 bags. Isn't that so cool? So, we should do. Nick just brought something up. He texted me. We should do something where we do chorovats, we do barbecue, and we have a nice little setup, and we can chat and have some conversations with each other on important topics. I mean, I was going easy on Nick last time with the women in ministry. Um, it's a sensitive topic, man. But
Bro,
Nick, I
Nick
hope
will
you know I
eat
was
you
going.
up. Nick will eat you up alive. That doesn't
I
mean
feel
he's
like
right. That doesn't mean he's right, but he will eat you up alive.
I feel like Nick knows what he's doing. He comes over with apple juice, gets you all calm and kind of in an agreement. What's it called? Agreeable mood. Okay. Once you're a couple glasses in, you're like, women in ministry. Women should do ministry. Men, men are screwing up all ministries. That's what Nick does to you.
President Trump, his wife should lead the country. My
Yeah,
wife
yeah.
is in the chat. My wife's in the chat and says, we can hear Tomic very clearly. Are any demands that Tomic stays on? Yeah. And then Salwa says, Aussies do barbecue the best. Like, Salwa just wants to say random stuff to get a kick out of us getting angry and then like kicking her off the live and blocking her for saying stuff like this. This is more offensive than anything else she said. Salwa, you can't say that. That's like being a traitor to your own like people in the Middle East. I mean, Aussies do barbecue the best. That's the worst thing she's ever said.
Yeah, hands down. Come on. Sawa, you're better than that. We were just starting to become friends, and now you just made a heretical statement like that. This takes us back to the beginning at this point.
You know, I'm going to continue with my sarcasm with her. You're right, Sawa. Aussies do everything the best. It's the best country. It's the best continent. It's the best barbecue. It's the best animals. The whole world should be run by Australians. A land of criminals and crooks.
Yeah, and you guys are bordering Germany, so you got the you got the best hot dogs too.
American ignorance when it comes to geography. Thank you, Tom. Arthur, I sent you a video on Instagram. It is a video that is quite interesting. It's a Disney-ish video called The British Caliphate. Okay, I will make sure to watch that later. What's the subject? Daniel Ben Daniel. Daniel, son of Daniel. Right now, we're talking to Tom from LA. Alhamdulillah, he has a great beard.
Listen, the subject is whatever you want it to be. Okay, whatever you want it to be is the subject. That's what we're talking about today. Hey, but listen, we should do. We should do a praise with reason too, and of course we should call it praise with reason because that's if you know anything about marketing, you want to keep your branding consistent. It's like Ruslan's not gonna do bless God and then next year do I don't know love God, cherish God, because that doesn't make any sense, right? You think of Ruslan, you think of bless God. You think of Apologia Center, you think of Tom. After you think of Tom, I'm kidding. We should definitely keep the
Look,
naming.
stop talking so much. You misunderstood what I said. Somebody said we should be called bless. It should be called Praise with Reason 2. And I was like, it's not a movie. It will be called Praise with Reason, but it won't be called Praise with Reason 2, or as Nick suggested Praise with Reason 2, No Apologies. What do you think? This is the 90s movies culture? I know that's how old he is. He was a middle-aged man in the 90s, and he watched all the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, and he's used to those kind of titles. Nick is. But it will obviously be called Praise with Reason. Yes, that's on brand. There's no question about it. But it's definitely not going to be called Praise with Reason 2, Tom's Return.
That's good. Praise with Reason 2, the air conditioning, the return of the air conditioning, because it was really hot last time. I was gonna make a very controversial statement, which is why I called. But you've been your softness has been rubbing off on me, where I've started becoming a soft person in general. It's interesting because people actually think you're a very aggressive kind of dude. I think you're a softy, bro. I think you come off aggressive, not a softy in a negative way, not like a softy like you won't hold it down for your homeboys or your family. A softy as in you're more thoughtful in your responses than your character sometimes would you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. But Salwa said earlier that she doesn't think I'm a critical thinker at all. So we're just going to go with her analysis of my person and my thoughtfulness. And I agreed with her. I'm not a critical thinker at all. I just lean on what I think is right. Hey, Ben Daniel has called in. Why don't you stick around for this conversation? Because I also want to test to see if there's an echo when you two are talking. So just stick around for a couple of seconds. Let me move in.
I'm here. Shalom, shalom.
Mr. Daniel, shalom. Thank you for calling. How can we help you?
Oh, I was just bebopping around and I saw your little chat box there. I heard someone say something about your guys' Muslim beards.
He's like, I'll take one and double down.
How are you guys? I couldn't even really catch the title. What is it that you are and discuss on your show?
Tom, feel free to comment on some of these things.
Yeah, we're an apologetics channel. Arthur is mainly Arthur mainly runs the show here, and we talk about a wide ranging kind of subjects from acts like deep apologetics, existence of God, how to defend the Christian faith, reliability of scripture, all the way down to social issues and politics, and how the Christian worldview kind of answers the political questions of today. So it's a wide ranging channel. But on Fridays, Arthur does call-ins like this, where people call in, ask questions, and and things of that sort. So welcome, man. And by the way, it's always very disheartening entering a room thinking you have the best beard, and then seeing a man like Daniel standing there, and you're just like, you know what? Why am I even keeping my beard? Let me just go shave it off. There's no point to this anymore. So welcome, man.
I just want to say, Tom, why do you think that? Tom, why do you think that you were in here with me and you thought you had the better beard? That's my question.
Uh-oh.
No, I didn't think I had the better beard compared to you, but I thought we were kind of in the same category of beard. And then Daniel walked in, and now we're basically women at this point. We basically put makeup on and call it a Friday.
I call my Fridays prep day, which was kind of one of the things I was interested. How do you guys feel if about Christians, if they should keep Torah or not?
Daniel, were you on earlier on when I was having a conversation with another gentleman about these things?
No, I wasn't. Sorry. I just found you when I popped in. You just already had someone on talking about it.
You know, I find that ironic because I think God does things in unique ways, and it seems like we have two people who are disconnected from one another, and it's not even the title of the video, but that subject would come up multiple times. So briefly, let me put it this way, which is what I said earlier. I personally have no issue with Christians keeping Torah. I think the New Testament allows for Christians to keep Torah, as long as they don't take a position that Christians who don't keep it are in sin and rebellion against God, and or maybe even not Christians at all or something like that. But if a Christian decides in their own conscience and relationship with Jesus that they are going to keep Torah, I think that's completely permissible. As a matter of fact, I think a good amount of the Jewish believers in the New Testament and the early church most likely kept Torah. So that doesn't in any way bother me.
That's very nice to hear. Most people say that I'm putting a burden under myself and defiling Messiah and what he died for, and I'm like, huh? So it was the Spirit that brought it.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to have a further conversation in the sense of like, when you say Christian, there the assumption is this is a safe person. They think salvation is in Jesus only, and all of those things are set in place, and they're not keeping Torah to be saved. They're not keeping Torah for their own salvation or righteousness sake or something like that. It's flowing out of the fact that they're saved, and they have a conviction to keep these commandments and laws. That's the category I'm placing it in. Is it a burden to you? I don't know. Does it feel burdensome is a question I would ask. I mean, it might not be burdensome to some individuals, and it might be burdensome to some other individuals. I mean, I would go back to, I think what Peter says is, are we going to put this kind of a burden on the Gentile believers? And he speaks about how themselves and their forefathers haven't been able to keep it. But I think that's a bit of a different conversation. But if you don't feel like it's a burden to you, then it's not a burden to you.
No, actually, what is it? Ezekiel 11. I always get it backwards. 11:19 or 19:11. I think it's 11:19. It's basically saying when you get this new spirit that you will want to, follow his statutes and decrees. That's the way I look at it. That's the way. But it's really refreshing to hear that, because most people condemn, and I'm like, I'm not doing it for righteousness or anything like that. You just find the wisdom in God's word. So, yeah.
And again, like I said, I think that's happened throughout. I said this earlier. I think it's throughout history we've had this discussion. We've definitely had it from the beginning. We see it in the Bible, and there's plenty of Jewish believers in Christ as Messiah who keep Torah. I think that's completely fine. I don't think we should go to them and say, Nick just commented and said, I'm a big believer in Jewish Christians maintaining the law. They feel called to do so. I mean, it's very interesting to me because I think categorically people are misunderstanding each other. This is one of my major beefs with internet conversations, is that people immediately jump to conclusions, and maybe they should come up with a rule like you got to ask 5 questions before you give one answer or something like that, so that they can actually properly be understanding. Like what I said is I assume those things because you use the word Christian. Partly because I've been in dialogues like this before, and I know what kind of terminology people who'd be on strange sides would use, and Christian would not be one of them. Your question immediately, like, how do you feel about Christians keeping Torah, told me a number of things about you. And so, because I've had folks call in here, Daniel, and come off like, hey, you seem this and that, and then 10 minutes into the conversation, they believe in every heresy under the sun, denying all sorts of things. So we do have to be careful there too. And people need to be careful not to categorize individuals like yourself, individuals like the gentleman that called earlier, into some of these camps, thinking that you guys are saying the same thing. Are you by any
That's
chance?
true.
Are you by any chance ethnically Jewish?
No, I would be Irish, with a mix of whatever the Vikings are. So yeah.
That explains the beard. It's interesting. You remind me. I don't know if you know Anthony Rogers. Anthony Rogers.
I've been told that many times. I'm gonna have to watch the guy. I don't know who he is.
You should. You should. Anthony's a brilliant brother in the Lord. He does really good apologetics work. But you have very similar features to him, and definitely a really cool beard like his when he grows his out.
Cool. Yes. No, I just thought I'd call and ask what your thoughts were on that. I think it's I don't know. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think the fact that people call it a burdensome, I'm like, are you kidding me? I was living terribly. It was nice to follow some guidance,
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's a fine point. What are you part of a fellowship? Like, what does your kind of fellowship community look like?
Well, we have several smaller fellowships within an hour distance. A lot of it's in-house. Somebody will host it this week. Somebody will host it next week. It's the same kind of formation as kind of the church type thing. We're starting to see separations, just like the churches. One person or one family believes this way, one family believes that way, then there's separations, and it's just in our flesh, I guess, because we're supposed to be all in one body in Messiah, but everybody desires to separate.
Yeah, that's difficult. I'm one of the things I think Christians need to do a way better job at is meditating and reflecting on Jesus' high priestly prayer in John 17, and take those words very seriously, very, very seriously, because our unity is a reflection of the unity within the Trinity, and we're supposed to reflect that kind of a love, and love that kind amongst humans. Doesn't only exist when we agree with one another. It specifically comes to the surface where we disagree with one another.
Yep. Many ways. The deceiver was in the garden, and he caused the separation of man from God. And I believe the deceiver is kind of like in the religion, causing people to split and step away from.
Yeah, well, his ways are not new to us.
No. Yep, for sure.
Well, thank you for calling in, Daniel. Really appreciate it. And appreciate your thoughts, man. Be blessed.
Be blessed. Thank you.
Tom, what do you think about these sorts of conversations? It's interesting that we've had this happen like immediately after one another, same subject. Same issue.
I didn't want to. I didn't want to jump in because he was enjoying your answers, and I don't think mine would be very similar. It's not a point of contention for me. Like, it's not like a hill I'm willing to die on. But I really have a hard time. And by the way, I follow a lot of Messianic Jews. Actually, a lot of my worship style and just general praise style comes from Messianic Jews like Paul Wilbur. Um, so I'm very familiar with, like, or even with Charlie Kirk and how he would observe the Sabbath and things of that sort. So I do see people that find value in it, but I see it more as if it's not an issue of salvation and if it's not a works based thing, then I would push Christians more towards spiritual disciplines. Like you can if you want to, let's say, observe the Sabbath, you can have a spiritual discipline of rest, of learning how to rest, learning how to, put your devices away, learning how to refrain from, let's say, your phone while you're sitting with family. I don't see the necessity of keeping Torah or these Old Testament laws in order to fulfill those, let's say, discipline needs that a Christian might have in their life. Does that make sense? I don't know if you're responding, but I can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm muted. Sorry. What I was saying was, I do think there's an aspect of individuals who just have a natural kind of sensitivity, and so they gravitate in those areas, versus individuals that enjoy the parameters, like they like that it's not burdensome, like Daniel was saying. It's like, hey, I lived my life kind of wild and free, and then this is actually really, really good for me, is what I got from what he was saying. And I think that's a fine thing. I do agree with you in regards to one of the big issues we're seeing is that Christians aren't actually practicing spiritual disciplines, and then so if people do that en masse, one of the things we're going to see is a reaction towards that,
Yeah,
and then the reaction is going to go towards the other end. I think that's, by the way, I think that's predominantly one of the reasons why we're seeing a reaction to people going towards more traditional expressions of Christianity. Right. So folks, especially who discover Christianity, go, "Oh man, it seems like the Orthodox or the Catholics are a lot more serious about their faith." And it's like, no, that's just because you're reacting to being around really lousy people. That doesn't mean they are more serious. It's your reaction. So we get these pendulum swings that constantly happen.
yeah. I see it as Christ has. Look, I don't want to sound elementary here, or like I'm ignoring people's actual convictions and things of that sort. But I see it as Christ has given us freedom and liberated us from those things, a lot of those things. And so it with that liberation doesn't come this like this completely like free grace, like I can do whatever the heck I want. I don't have to keep any sort, like I don't have to go to church, I don't have to fellowship with the believers, I don't have to have a prayer life, I never have to fast, like that thing over the top. And to be honest with you, I don't know a lot of serious Christians that live like that way. So we still have these things that we do, let's say, for lack of better words, institutionally, as Protestant evangelicals, where um, they are things that keep discipline, right? So there's the Bible study.
Tom's moving in a vehicle, so your internet's cutting off, Tom.
Get up.
Are you driving through the forest of America? Is that why you don't have proper internet? He just dropped away. He might call back. Who knows? I look. I do agree with what Tom is saying. By the way, I guess one of the things that is important for me is also when these conversations come up is to approach it like pastorally, because I've interacted with a lot of different sorts of people. Your internet and audio kept cutting off. It's because you were driving and your service was like,
Can you hear me?
yeah, major lag. We'll see. He'll figure it out. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, I mean, amen. I mean, this is my stance. But what we see in the letters of the New Testament are, for example, Jewish believers keeping Torah. We see the conflicts in the church in Rome between Jewish and Gentile believers. We see the conflict between Peter eating with Gentiles and some of the Jewish believers showing up. I mean, these people are never told, in the text to us that they're like fake believers or this and that. It's like they're legitimate believers. And so because that's the case, I'm completely fine and agree with certain people. And I think the New Testament sets it out. Certain people want to do it that way. And I'd say, God bless you guys, do it that way. As long as you don't make that a necessity and a responsibility on me, you can do it that way. You have the freedom in Christ to live your Christian life that way. You have the complete freedom in Christ for you to never eat meat again or never eat. Tom, are you back? Sean says, I think the Orthodox do it as well to encourage disciplines, etc. It's hard to create your own guidelines and disciplines because the goal posts always seem to move based on feelings, whims, and seasons. I mean, they don't have to. Like, you can come up with a rule like every Monday and Tuesday, I will fast and then keep fasting. Every Monday and Tuesday. So yes, they've created calendars and all sorts of stuff like that. And if you consider that being done well, I guess that's fine. I mean, one of the things I think I've seen in my culture that identifies obviously predominantly as Christian is that people do all those things without even knowing why they're doing it, which is the opposite side. The opposite side is you develop a culture where people keep all these religious festivals. And when you go to them and you talk to them about Jesus, they know nothing about Jesus. But they're fasting, but they're not eating during Lent, and they're not eating certain things during Lent, and they're not doing this, and they're not doing that. But they are as far from Jesus as you can potentially be far from him. So there is I get what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree, but there's an opposite side to that where you may develop a society and a culture of individuals who keep laws and traditions and rules for their own sake, not for the sake of Christ. And that's a huge problem. Did you fix your internet? Can you talk? Your audio is horrible, bro. Wherever you are, the internet's really bad.
I have 4 bars, 5 complete 4 bars.
Your audio is not even coming through properly. I don't know what's going on.
Well, I wanted to discuss further on this topic, but it seems like the Jewish God is not letting me do it. So I might have to.
I'm gonna. Tom, go home and get on a computer and then call me or something like that. I don't know. I don't. He's saying stuff I can't even make out. Like make out parts of it. I'm actually on Arthur's side on this. Someone who requires structure, I can appreciate why some may choose to do it that way. Certainly would judge otherwise in the right context. Thank you, Daniel. I agree 100%. That's why Jesus must be central, where the Armenian church fails short on. 100% agree with Arthur. Okay. Yes, my people do this fasting and traditions, having no idea why. It's the same thing here, right? Rather merely following traditions. Many Lebanese don't eat meat on Fridays, just fish. Hey, look, this unregenerated atheist is saying a bunch of stuff about my friend. Be careful, mighty Sarlacc. Ugh. Sounds like many Catholics to me when ash on their foreheads and the rest of the year getting drunk and engaging in degeneracy. Yep. Yeah. That's true. Not picking a fight with the Catholics, just an observation. I mean, look, anybody in their right state of mind would agree with what you're saying. Like it's not an attack. Like I'd say the same thing about Protestants, right? It would be the equivalent of me saying, it's like the Baptists who go to church on Sundays and repent for all the stuff they were doing on Saturday night, which is, the South is full of people like this. That's not an attack on Baptists. That's not an attack on Protestants. That's the reality of the church in this world. That's the reality of what I think Augustine or Saint Augustine, if you really want to speak about him like that, was speaking about when he was talking about there's a visible church and there's an invisible church. That is the reality of what we see in the Bible when there's conversations about Israel and there's a remnant in Israel. Like this concept continues. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Now, we're nuancing it a little bit more in regards to creating traditions, creating structure around certain things. Like there's nothing wrong with those things. Just because something has negative connotations doesn't mean that we just like ignore them. We understand the negative connotations. But yeah. Okay, I think Tom's internet's been fixed.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I don't know what's going on because I'm at 5G UC with 5 bars. But man, something is up with your system. I'm telling you, man. This has never happened. This is strange. It's an attack.
Yeah, nothing's up with my system. I don't know how to use it well. But your internet connection has nothing to do with Satan.
So listen, I was saying before something cut me off. I don't know if you're still on this topic. Are you still on this topic? You change topics. You change topics like my son used to change his diapers. So I'm not sure.
I thought you were going to say I change topics the way you change shoes.
No, so look, it's really odd. It's really odd for me when like someone is given this freedom of like like Christ coming and you see these moments where like there's a video on Instagram somebody shared. I think you might have liked it, but it's like in every way Jesus stood against against the religious leaders of that time. They said don't do this, he did this. They said don't heal on the Sabbath, he does this. Like, and it's really strange to me to see that work complete, and then to have this like affinity as a non-Jew, especially to like want to practice certain things that are really, like, if you really look at it, at best they're spiritual disciplines at best, and at worst it's like you're overly burdening yourself and potentially moving away from the grace and the freedom that Christ has given you. Like, that's at worst. And a lot of people a lot of non-Jews that do this kind of stuff fall somewhere in the middle, where they see it as having a continuity importance, like preserving some of that ancestry of our faith, like what came before Jesus, and at the same time using it as a means of like discipline and things of that sort. For Jews, I get it, but I don't see the necessity of it. Let me give you an example before you comment on it. This is something I noticed while driving, and I really want your thoughts on this. So, you know how the Orthodox Church, the Armenian Church, Apostolic Church has always, like they kind of pride themselves of like these beautiful church buildings and tradition and all these sorts of things. I was driving by a church being built in Glendale. It's on Brand Central, whatever. And so they're giving it the look of like an Armenian Apostolic Church, right? But it's made of like the same crappy wood that like some guy making a house is using, right? Like, but the outside, like the way they're building it, the way they're doing the, I don't even know what that thing is called at the top, the dome, is looking like when they when they plaster with paint, that it's gonna be this like rich, like ancient 3,000-year-old church that has stood through earthquakes and stood the test of time. And in my mind, I'm like, dude, it's just wood. So like it's not it's like you used to have, I'll finish right here. It's like you used to have this thing where like, no, we build our churches with rocks and we put these ancient important artifacts in there because it's meaningful. But like now it's like, is it actually that, or is it just the presentation? Is it just like now our church is just it's a wooden church, like the business next door, but in order to give it that same look and the awe, like we'll just cover it with paint, and when you're driving by, you'll be like, "Man, look at this! All these Protestants worshiping in warehouses." When our Armenian Apostolic churches, this is made of ancient rock. It's like, no, brother. Like, so that's what I fear, and to like kind of mix it with this conversation we're just having, it's like, is it just a thing that you want on the outside to look like this preserved ancient thing, but on the inside it's just regular wood from Home Depot? And I fear sometimes these like practices can to me can come off that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with your internet. Hang on, I got to jump. I'm gonna add another caller in here. He's an Arsenal fan, bro. Just these Arsenal fans, man. I hope we are not one of the deluded ones, and we have another great beard on this, bro. We should just call this the Beard Channel. Welcome. What's your name?
My name's Andy, AH Bespoke.
I didn't know you were an Arsenal fan.
How can I not be? I was born in London, so how can I not be?
Fair point.
Best team in the Premiership.
Fair point, man. Fair point. Dude, now Jerome's like tripping out over there. He's like, I thought I was the only Arsenal fan here. You know, I'm special. Hey, by the way, Tom, he makes some beautiful. Tom just went away. I was just talking to him. Tom, listen to me. He makes some beautiful carvings. This man has such great skill with his hands. It's beautiful stuff, man. I was thoroughly impressed. I was looking through. I was probably like on your Instagram page, just like scrolling through and looking at every single one of the pictures and zooming in. You're a very talented man.
Oh, bless you. The Lord gave me a gift, and that sprung out over COVID. Like, are we allowed to say? I don't know if we're allowed to say that, but like over COVID, and yeah, I did a YouTube channel, had that going for quite a few years, but I started commenting on live streams, and I was getting quite a lot of unwanted attention from certain group of people. So I pulled quite a lot of my stuff offline. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame. But
is that why you ended up growing a beard?
I've had my beard for years. It used to be longer. Used to be a lot longer. Used to be sort of down to.
Man, so
lower chest.
Before you comment on other stuff, do you think you guys are going to beat Chelsea this week?
Yes.
Score predictions.
Unequivocal. It'll be a slow game, probably a 2-1.
Look, I hope so.
Conservative.
I hope so. It's going to benefit us because I don't want Man City winning the title. So if anybody's going to win it, I don't mind Arsenal winning. But it also hurts Chelsea, and if we win our game, then we jump ahead of them. So that fits. What do you think about the Champions League draw?
Well, we've been doing quite well, so
but you guys got also a pretty easy side of the bracket, to be fair. Well, maybe easy. I don't know. Bodo Glimt is killing giants, so.
Yeah, but we did, yeah, maybe. But I think Arsenal were going to be at the top, although we do stutter after Christmas as always. But yeah, it's a long-suffering pain as an Arsenal fan.
Perseverance and sanctification, I guess. So what do you somebody, I was at the pub a number of weeks ago with my kids, and then somebody approached me and said, have you started your teaching your kids that they might have heart problems when they grow up as Liverpool fans?
Well, my eldest is 18. He was born down south, not in London, because I moved out of London when I was a lot younger. He actually supports AFC Bournemouth, so I mean I can't complain. And my youngest, who's 6, he's now we live in Scotland. There's no point in supporting any football team in Scotland. They're all rubbish. They wouldn't stand a chance in the Premiership.
It's close. It's close enough to Liverpool for him to become a Liverpool fan.
True, although I'm half Scouse myself, so
That's the connection. That's it. I just need about a week with him, and he'll become a Liverpool fan.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
Hey, what do you think? What do you think about these conversations that we've been having? Do you have any opinions on it? With the number of callers that came in, this law keeping kind of stuff.
So I actually had to drop out because of all the stuff that's been going on in the family. I had to have a chat with my parents to get their parental advice and biblical advice on how to approach certain things, especially with my youngest son. Because obviously with the issues we're having with my mother-in-law, it's how we, as Christian parents, approach the subject to a 6-year-old, which is it's a sensitive subject, but yeah. But I did catch Daniel just a minute ago, and as I said in the comments, I agree with you completely. In the right context, and I will be going back to watch the live as I always do. When I don't get to see the whole thing, because I'm at the stage where I've been a Christian for quite a few years, but I don't feel I have developed enough in my spiritual journey, and now I have a passion for it and a desire to learn more, which isn't a bad thing. And now I'm leading in my church with the youth group. It's kind of important that I do as someone who's leading. So yeah, I was brought up in a Christian home, so I've obviously been surrounded by biblical teaching, but throughout my life I've done various other things that I shouldn't have done, and took me on a different path. And I came back 18 years ago now, and struggled quite a bit at the beginning, But now, obviously, as I say, I'm really trying to push into learning more, and all that kind of stuff, which is why I enjoy watching your live, and certainly picking up things that I need to know as a Christian husband, father, leader, because it ultimately it's not necessarily for my benefit, but it's for the benefit of others, and I think that's an important thing to focus on. So yeah.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Hey, so I'm going to comment something just for your benefit, and it might be beneficial to you because I don't want to give too many details here. We have a gentleman at our church in a very similar situation to yours, with your mother-in-law. And in California, I didn't even know this. I didn't know they had even passed this stuff because I always thought euthanasia was illegal. I know some other countries have passed legislation for whatever they're calling it, ethical euthanasia or whatever like that. So in California, actually, I just found because of that, I did some research where the way they've sidestepped some ethical concerns is you can essentially do that. They will guide you through it. They give you a pill as long as you're mentally in the right mind. Who determines that? Very good question to be asked, I think. And it has to be self-administered, essentially. But this got me thinking in a number of ways, and then it was interesting because I went on Facebook, and then Doug Grutheis, Professor Dr. Douglas Grutheis, who's an apologist, had just written an article on this. So if you want, I'm just giving you some resources if you want to think in that direction. So if you just Google Douglas Grutheis article on euthanasia, it's going to come up. There's another book I read a very long time ago. It's Francis Schaeffer co-authored it with Everett Koop, who was the Surgeon General of the United States. It's called Whatever Happened to the Human Race. And this is a book written in the 70s, I believe, and predominantly it's over abortion and euthanasia. But it's an extremely important conversation to be had, and how we should deal with these things as Christians, and not just the legality of it, but since it is legal, how do we go about counseling people and family members and all that stuff, and whether those individuals are Christians or not, and what it looks like. I remember a number of years ago, there was a situation where one of the guys at our church had a ridiculously aggressive form of cancer that went away and came back, and the way he passed away was essentially they put him. There was a induced coma they put him in, essentially, and then he passed away in his sleep. By I'm guessing he's going to call back. So the story I was telling you guys was that the conversation was around whether this should be considered the taking of one's own life or not, and whether that's ethical. And in that situation, it wasn't. It was just essentially equivalent to pain medication, a ridiculous amount of it, where you go into sleep, and he passed away in his sleep. But these conversations, you guys, I don't see many people having these conversations, and I think they are of extreme importance. They're of pastoral importance. The more the laws change, the more pastors need to be and Christians need to be educated upon the subject. I think Christians in modern Western societies need to have some things written down, a plan for passing. Like, do you want to be hooked up to machines for a very long time? Do you not? Do you want to be resuscitated? God forbid a situation like that happens. Do you not want to be? How do you counsel individuals in your church who have family members that are choosing to, end of life decisions they're going to be making? They are of extreme importance. And most folks, in my observation, are not talking about these things. Most of the channels are not talking about these things because they're too busy fighting one another, or incorrectly fighting one another. Let me bring you back. I don't know how much of that you heard or not.
It started breaking up quite a bit, so I thought I'd move a bit closer to my modem, see if that makes any difference.
Okay. Yeah, so you heard me recommend the book, Whatever Happened to the Human Race.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was sharing, like, I've had situations in our church, and the example I gave was a gentleman who had cancer, who it was in his lungs, so he was suffocating. They had him on a ridiculous amount of oxygen, and it wasn't helping, but he was going to pass. They knew he was going to pass. And what ended up happening is they put him into a deep sleep. They put him into coma, essentially, and he passed away in a sleep. Now, they didn't give a medication for him to pass away. In my mind, the ethical aspect of that is that it was just really heavy meds they put him on, so he doesn't feel pain. So that would have been a situation of pain management. But he was a believer, and his main concern was, and we spoke about this stuff the week before. Like, is this ethical? Is this biblical? Is this considered, the taking of one's life? And we went through all those details. My point was that a lot of Christians are not prepared for these conversations. They haven't been prepared for a lot of these conversations. Frankly, I don't think a lot of pastors are prepared for these conversations. They haven't even thought about it. And then all of a sudden, it falls into their lap. And then they don't know how to deal with it in the moment. And my recommendation generally is, prepare yourselves. Let these things be conversations you bring up about in your church, and then make decisions as to what you would allow and not allow when you are completely fine, in a correct state of mind, so that if the opportunity, or not opportunity is the wrong word, if the situation ever arises, your children, your grandchildren, your spouse, your wife, your husband, knows exactly what you would wanted, and the decisions they would have made. Now, obviously, make those within the confines of Christian ethical decisions. But the fact people aren't even aware of these things, that, in the apologetics world, we're aware of it because these come up. And we try to deal with, social legal kind of sort of stuff. I know in certain countries, I know England has had situations where people have been completely healthy, nothing wrong with them, and they've wanted to take their own lives because their spouse passed away, and it was emotional anguish that they couldn't live through. And that's generated a lot of conversation, because that's not a sickness. That's not what the law was intended for, but the law is not specific enough to not allow for that, and then becomes a whole mess, like legally and socially becomes a whole mess.
I think in the UK that I think they might have actually recently passed. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this. And it certainly was conversations that were being had around the subject, in terms of how we as a family are dealing with it. It's difficult because she's obviously my mother-in-law, not my mother. So yes, I have a say in a sense, but not in not really, if that makes sense. I have my opinion, and I wouldn't necessarily. It wouldn't be a conversation I would have with my mother-in-law. That would be my wife that would have that conversation, and if her brother would actually come to see her, then I'm sure he would have that conversation with her. But it's very difficult because my wife is taking the full load of the family, if you like. So it's affecting her a lot more, and it has actually meant that we've had a conversation, as you were saying, about what would happen if. So we are actively in the process of having that discussion about the what ifs, and to what extent, if something was to happen, and yeah, it not a conversation I particularly relish. I'm not going to lie. It's well, if I'm being completely honest, I'm surprised I've got this far in my life. I'm 45, and my history is not great. I've done things that a lot of people have done less and come off worse, and yet the Lord's protected me throughout all of that, and I'm still here. I can only assume He has a plan for the experiences that I've been through to benefit others, as I've said previously, hence the teaching. So yeah, it's one of those situations, I think.
Yeah,
So,
and this is this is partly why I think, like the difficulty of having conversations like this. And I remember there was a situation a number of years ago where our senior pastor at the time said he was going to go visit someone at the hospital and stuff. And I inquired, and he said, "Oh, I've been visiting this person at the hospital for more than 10 years." And I said, "Well, okay, what's like their condition and stuff?" And they were hooked up to machines, and they had made the decision to hook this person up to machines. And the spouse, by the way, this person hooked up to machines could live for another 30 years. But in a certain state in the hospital, and the spouse had been in this state of caring for, their spouse, but not really, like, the interaction wasn't there. It's not like they're hooked up to a machine and they can interact with you. It's that they're hooked up to a machine and they can't interact with you. But now then the idea becomes, if we remove the individual from the machine and they pass away, then there's the guilt of, are we responsible for ending their life? Where if there was a decision made initially not to hook them up to a machine and their life had ended, then that would have been a lot more natural, and people wouldn't have had that guilt. But now that's there, and so people are hesitant to make that decision because they don't want to be responsible for ending someone's life. And so they don't want to live with the guilt. And so there's this perpetual kind of, and when I took, when I was in seminary, I took ethics with Professor Scott Ray, Dr. Scott Ray's written, I would look his name up as well. He's written a number of things because he's a bioethicist. He's worked in hospitals and done ethical counseling at hospitals for many years. He's a great ethicist, good, great Christian man. And like we had to deal with these scenarios, and they were all real life scenarios we were dealing with. There's this stuff he had dealt with in hospitals, and how would we go about it? But I go back to the fact that plenty of Christians are completely unprepared for these sorts of conversations, and churches are unprepared, and pastors particularly are unprepared. It is not a part of their training to be prepared for these conversations. It would have to be like extra training on top of that, or It'd be stuff that happens on the job, and then because it comes up, they go do their studies and consult folks and all that. Quite often, one of the things I've observed is pastors making wrong decisions, giving incorrect ethical advice because they don't understand the situation, because they're not an expert in that. And again, they're very complicated situations. Like, I understand exactly what you're saying, right? Like, this is a conversation. This is your mother-in-law, your wife's dealing with it, and that complicates relationally in so many different ways. There's always complications with, say, the son or the daughter is a believer, but the parent is not, or vice versa. And they're making decisions and you're uneasy with, and it's like, do I want to encourage this? Do I want to not? Do I tell them don't because I think it's wrong? What kind of conflicts? There's just so many layers to a conversation like this. And we're not even talking about kind of what you were just mentioning, like, how do we have this conversation with our 6-year-old? That's a completely different layer to this whole thing. And be biblically faithful parents.
Absolutely. So for context, I'm quite fortunate in how I was brought up. My parents were carers at a residential home for people with disabilities and the elderly. So by the age of 2, I'd already seen my first dead person. Long story. I've been around people with disabilities. As I got older, my dad became a social worker, dealing with disabilities and things of that nature, stroke, head injuries, various handicap or disabilities. Sorry, we can't say that anymore. Disabilities and ailments, illnesses, sicknesses, cancers, that kind of thing. And my mum worked in our local hospital in the head injury department, which at the age of 16, she had a bring your son to work day. So she thought she would traumatize me and take me into a hospital in a head injury department, which there was a young lad who was maybe 4 years older than me at the time, who was horsing around with his mates on his, just sat on a car, wasn't moving. He fell off the bonnet of a car, hit his head on the curb, and was from the neck down not able to do anything. He was constantly in this bed. And I remember speaking to his mum at the time, and he was fully conscious. He couldn't speak, but he was being fed through a tube. He's effectively being kept alive by the machine. And I remember talking to her about the conversation. I was like, "Wow, you're such an amazing mum for being here with your son." She's like, "Well, he's my son." So having had all of that experience and various tragedies of family members dying in the most horrific ways, various illnesses and just tragic ways of passing away, I have been around. That sounds really dark, but death, and so my perception of certain things is, I don't want to say jaded, but I have a numbness to that particular side of it. So I'm more of a say it how it is, but from certainly now from a biblical perspective and sanctity of life. But then at what point is life not life? And then you get into the whole ethical thing, and that's where my dad comes in, and that's hence why we had the conversation this evening about these kind of things. And he's an elder of my church and my old church back down in England, and he was taking me through a few passages and sort of trying to put my mind at ease as a parent, obviously to my 6-year-old, and giving advice to my wife, who is obviously, she's physically dealing with it every single day, and on her own effectively, even though obviously she has my support, but on her own in terms of her side of the family. So yeah, it's one big experience that as a family it is tough, but obviously the grace of God's getting us through every single day. So and He will continue to do so, and we pray that His will be done. Essentially, Jacob will be fine. My youngest, he'll be fine, because he just will be. I trust and believe that the Lord will protect him. The Lord will guide him. He knows how to pray, even though he's 6. He says his prayers before he goes to bed. He says prayers before he eats. He even goes to, although we're not, he goes to a Catholic school, which at least he's receiving a Christian message through his schooling, rather than a secular school, which in the UK is not a place I particularly would want him to go, certainly at a young age. And they even talk to him. He has hymns still at school. They have the Lord's Prayer and things like that. So he's learning constantly. Obviously, when we go to church, he goes to Sunday school, and he's very much involved in Sunday school. So he's getting the biblical food from a young age. So he will, I trust, if not just by osmosis, take that in and take that information, and it will give him a solid foundation for as he grows up, as it did for me.
Yeah, the other thing I would say,
and
the other thing I would say is that kids are ridiculously resilient. And like we don't realize this till we watch a child go through some situations, and you always, as a parent, you always want to parent them through it and guide them and stuff, and then you realize I might be undermining how resilient people are at a young age. But there's the other thing I'd constantly think about is there's a certain kind of maturity that comes through experiences. And I think I reflect on this myself. By the way, when I was much older, I was in college, university, and I took some of these personality tests they have and stuff. But I took one that was particularly really well done, and one of the things I realized through taking that test was that I do not know how to grieve. And that had always been the case. Like, it would always been, things would happen around me. People would pass away, friends, and when I was in my teens, my friends' grandparents obviously passed away and stuff. And then I would see them grieving. It would always be like, like, okay, like I get they're sad and stuff like that. And I'm not saying this in not a psychopath or anything like that. I feel emotions and empathy and all that. But one of the things I realized is the reason why I don't know how to grieve is because I've never experienced any of these things. My grandparents had all passed away by the time I was born. And I say that because typically in a child's life, the first people to pass away, if everything's normal, is obviously the elderly. That happens to be their grandparents. And when kids are around, probably anywhere from, 8 to 12 years old, they'll lose a grandparent. and then that's their first kind of experience. Like I saw my kids go through this with my wife's grandparents. All of them have lived a very long life, like in their 90s. And then I watched my children seeing their great grandparents pass away, and then we got to have these conversations. And I was like, wow, I've never ever experienced any of these things. And part of the reason why I didn't, and I still have a hard time, like empathizing, sympathizing with like individuals that are grieving, and then grieving myself in a situation like I've lost friends. I've lost very close friends of mine who've passed away. But I started experiencing those much later in life, where I would say it's not a part of the natural kind of ordering of life and learning, as a young person experiencing it, because it shapes you a certain way and it gives you proper emotions in the proper places and times and all that. But it does develop a certain kind of maturity that I think, like in that sense, when I was talking about myself, like I was mature when I took that test. There was like a bunch of points where I was extremely mature in, and then that was like the lowest ranked thing. I was like, oh, I'm really immature in this area. I really don't know how to do this, and it's something that needs to be worked on in my life. And it was interestingly, being in ministry, you're constantly, confronted with situations like that. And going back to the words of Jesus, and he says, rejoice with those who rejoice, and grieve with those who are grieving, essentially. And it's like, oh, this needs to be something that needs extra attention in my life. It doesn't come as naturally. And so, yeah, I mean, I resonate with you. He will be okay. He is going through, to a certain extent. I mean, the conditions aren't necessarily the same. To a certain extent, he's going through what people have gone through for thousands of years, in regards to life and death, and life with that. I mean, seeing older children welcoming a younger sibling is always a very interesting experience as well, and what they learn through that, as opposed to like they were the first one, and then they hit a certain age and they're observing, they're like, wait, hang on, there's a baby in there, and you have those conversations where you previously didn't. I think those are all very they're beautiful, in many ways, and orient people properly in their experiences of life is what I would say. Even the grieving aspect, even the grieving parts, even the sad parts, it does orient them properly to interact with life properly.
Yeah, so my 18-year-old son, I remember when he was 12 when Jacob was born, and they don't get to see each other much now, unfortunately, because for various reasons he lives down south. But I could see a difference, certainly a difference in the way that he was brought up to the way that my youngest is brought up. My eldest at 16 wanted to join the army, for example. He's a special individual, is my eldest. He has his own issues. Unfortunately, he was from my first marriage, and without going into too many details, although I was always there for him, it was very difficult between his mother and I. So there was always a little bit of a tension in the air. My eldest kind of is he amazes me, the way he reacts to things. In fact, he doesn't react to things which the average human would. But I think that's why he did so well when he was in the army. he was what they were looking for. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out for him, so he was medically discharged, and then kind of lost his way a bit, and he hasn't been there for his younger brother. So essentially, my youngest is an only child, so he's had me around all the time, whereas my eldest hasn't had me around all the time, and for various reasons, my eldest's upbringing was very different. His mother wasn't a Christian home, unless he was at my house, and then was taken to church, and brought up to believe that was the truth. He believes it in his heart, I believe. He's not a professing Christian yet, but I trust that the Lord will save him, and he will return. But anyway, it's interesting how the dynamic between the two ages are very different, and the way they react to certain things. My eldest hasn't had a loss yet. My youngest is most likely, considering the circumstances, to experience that first, if that makes sense. So it'd be interesting to see how that affects him as he's growing up.
Yeah, I think with proper guidance and proper parenting and stuff like that, those always become to the benefit of the individuals experiencing them. Because look, when we're growing up, we have all sorts of emotions and we don't know how to regulate them. Even under normal circumstances, like my children, I think that I have 4 of them, and my children all react emotionally to the same situation differently. Right? So one of my children, he has a sort of personality where his immediate reaction is aggression. One of my other children, this is my 2 boys, my other son, his reaction is more to like step back and think about it and think about like whether this is a safe situation or not, and like very analytical, extremely different. And so my conversations with those look very different. So like I tell one of my kids, hey, you need to be a bit quicker in making a decision and going into a situation if it needs that, rather than always staying back and considering safety and wisdom and all these things. And with the other one, I have a conversation about like, hey man, you need to relax. You need to think before you do something. Not everything requires aggression, and you have to control your emotions, and you can't allow your emotions to control you. I think that's a regular conversation we had. And again, these are like normal circumstances where, it could be, hey, we were playing together and somebody took my toy, and my immediate reaction is aggression. It's like, no, that shouldn't be your immediate reaction. And even under normal circumstances, same family, same parents, like people are wired differently. And having a theological view of this is that this is part of God's fingerprint on us as human beings, and it's the way He's wired us. And all those things are gifts, and all those things are great things if oriented properly to be used for the glory of God. Because some of us, like you were saying, your oldest was like sort of made for the military. Some people need to have that personality in order for us to actually live in peace. But you also need the more analytical thinkers and engineers and all those guys to create all the comforts of life that we have. And they can go into a situation a bit more aggressively and stuff. And so it's just a part of the human experience. And we have to come. This is why parenting quite often is referred to within the confines of discipleship. That's the first people you get to actually disciple and teach as you raise them. Is here's a situation that just came up. What do you do? Like and it bleeds into so many different areas in life where, like an example, again, we share a passion here with football, and my son plays football, and again, he's very, very analytical, and he'll always make like the smart pass, and I'm looking at him, I'm like, why can't you be a bit more like the Brazilians and take the player on and do some moves and be fancy a little bit? And he's like, well, but that was the right decision to make. And I'm like, yeah, but you're sucking out the joy and fun of the game. Like, do something. And that's probably my fault because I haven't watching the Premier League more than other leagues. But its personality bleeds through the way he plays the game.
That's also because you probably got him supporting Liverpool as well. You got him on the wrong team, mate. I'm just saying.
That's true. He didn't grow up watching Luis Suarez doing his thing.
Oh, that's a good thing.
But yeah, like so, even in the game, even in like parenting him and saying, "Hey, it's okay, go into a tackle, like be aggressive on that. It's okay for you to take a risk and try to do a bicycle kick rather than play it safer, like bring it down, like." Enjoy, have joy, right? In like this is not just it's not just a science to the game, but there's a beauty to the game, and you should enjoy that aspect of it. But all those personalities is very interesting how they bleed into every aspect of a human being's life and experience. And like I don't let those opportunities go by because I just frankly view them as a part of my discipleship. With him and helping him mature up. And I mean, the technical stuff is brilliant. He sees things that I don't see. He puts through passes that I don't see. And I'm like, wow, he does it. And afterwards, I'm like, that was really good, but if it's only that, and I'm like, you're just playing it safe way too much. And like go in there a bit more. But that's what he needs. Somebody else who's always being artistic needs a very different kind of conversation to be happening with them. And so ideally, like in my mind as Christian parents, one of the things that we should be doing is to the best of our abilities, raising up children who will be responsible humans first and foremost. I mean, I'm not under delusion or illusion to think that like there's a guarantee of all my kids being Christians. I obviously want them to be. I want them to give their lives to Jesus. I teach them that, and we have all those conversations, and it's necessary. But at the end of the day, God's given them the freedom, and I got to honor what God's given them, whether they're going to make a decision of that sort or not. But one of the things I can influence is that they can grow up to be mature humans. The ancient Greeks kind of spoke about it because they thought about the state quite a bit. And so they spoke about it in the sense of like responsible citizens to the state, and that means responsible, not like obeying the state, right? Like, but responsible to your fellow human beings and what that looks like. That's a part of parenting as well. And I think it's very interesting that the Bible, when it speaks about elders, it speaks about elders being qualified if their children are actually obedient children. They're well-rounded individuals as children, rather than off the wall kind of disobedient. It's like, well, if you can't manage your own household, how you can do that with God's? And I think that's a very interesting qualification that the Bible puts on elders. What do they look like as human beings? What do they look like as human beings matters quite a bit. He said, I indoctrinated my kids to do that.
I have to agree especially with the Liverpool thing. That's total indoctrination.
I actually would agree with you to a certain extent, but I think it's a Premier League thing more than it is. Like, 'cause it's just like I don't watch the La Liga. La Liga, there's a lot of that, right? And if we watched the Brazilian game, it definitely it'd be a very different kind of experience. But the Premier League is an extremely technical league, and again, there's advantages to that in many ways. But one of the things I don't deny it, because that's true in regards to what they've seen growing up. One of the observations I've had watching kids playing football is you can very clearly tell the difference between kids who play video games, like they play whatever it's called now, EA or FIFA, versus kids who actually watch the game. Big difference. Because they play like they're playing video games. They think they can essentially pass the ball to one person and run the whole field and go score a goal. It's like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, it's been quite a few years since I played football, but I used to play regularly in my 20s, and my youngest used to come and my eldest, sorry, used to come and watch me play. I was scouted by AFC Bournemouth, I'm just saying, as a goalkeeper. So that was, as I say, that was 15 years ago, maybe a few more. But he was always into football. He's actually an Arsenal supporter. He had his first Arsenal kit at the age of 2. I have to say I indoctrinated him. I didn't do the same with my youngest because he's a different animal. Actually, that's a pretty good turn of phrase, to be fair. He's more like the Hulk than Luke, who is a bit more of a messy type character. My youngest is more likely to take you out with a rugby ball than he would be with a football, which he's actually started to get into at that school, which pleases my dad no ends.
This is so interesting because my youngest son he actually plays in goal, and it fits his personality. It fits his personality perfectly, and he enjoys it. He never says, "I want to go into the field and play." Never wants to score a goal. He'll say 5, 6, and come to me and be like, "That's like scoring 5," and I'm like, "Yes, that is." And his favorite players are Virgil van Dijk and Alisson. Which again, for kids, they typically go for people, who are scoring goals and doing all the flair stuff. Here's how, everybody knows about James Milner and him being called boring James Milner. Here's how boring my oldest son is that for a while his favorite player was James Milner. And it fits his personality. It's like he did all the stuff, man. He did all the stuff he was supposed to do. Played all the positions. Wasn't flair, but put in the shift, And it's interesting because Bournemouth came out here and did a training camp, and they brought a bunch of coaches actually last year. All these teams come out here and do that, Barcelona and Madrid and all this, and they charge ridiculous amounts of money. And then they'll bring like one coach and everybody else is a certified coach, but they're all from the States. Bournemouth did it very differently. They charged very little money. They brought coaches who were the women's coaches, youth coaches, and they had a senior team coach, one of the assistants that was there. And then they maxed it out at 100 students, where all the other ones, everyone else, I'm just talking Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, Arsenal, United, they all come here and they'll have like 500 kids, and it's kind of looks like a zoo. And I had refused to take my son to any one of those things because I think they're gimmicks anyways. And I used that money to do personal training for him and all that. But I took him to the Bournemouth one and loved it. He's got a soft spot for Bournemouth, and really enjoyed it. And he won Player of the Day one of the days, and they gave him a Bournemouth top. So he'll wear that when Bournemouth are playing. He'll put his Bournemouth top on and be there. And he studies the game. I was actually talking to his coach the other day. I said the way he approaches the game, I would not be surprised that he goes into like coaching, because he enjoys the technical aspect of the game, where quite a bit of other people obviously enjoy fun aspect, the playing aspect. And again, this goes to the way people are wired, because I'm a Christian and I'm going to look at the world from a Christianly lens, as we ought to, whether that's in sport or when I'm sitting at church on Sunday and studying, the book of Romans. I got to have a Christian attitude about this, and people are wired a certain way, and if we can hone that in and look at it from the best word I can think about this is from a holy perspective, kind of set apart kind of perspective, then all of those things could be used for the glory of God. I think people have very narrow definitions as to what it looks like to serve the Lord, and it's narrow in the sense that, I gotta be in vocational ministry in order for me to be of service to the Lord, and that's just not true. That's just not true. We're seeing a lot of athletes, as a matter of fact, and Arsenal's got a number of them who are believers and pretty outspoken about their faith, who are doing quite a bit of really good stuff. And one of the things that was really interesting to me recently I saw was Jeremy Doku, who's become a believer over the last number of years. And there was an interview with him. He started a YouTube channel. And Jeremy Doku said he started his YouTube channel so that he can preach the gospel and tell people about God. Like, this guy's a professional athlete playing for one of the top teams on the planet. And his heart's with, I'm going to start a YouTube channel so I tell people about Jesus. I love it. And those are ways people can serve. And some of them are really in the background. Like, I know I followed kind of Firmino's transformation and him becoming a believer at Liverpool. And Allison and Fabinho were a big part of that. Recently, I saw a post from Fabio Carvalho, who didn't really take off at Liverpool, who just got baptized. And in the note he had put was, I want to thank Allison for having a hand in me taking the Lord seriously. And like, when you look at stories like that, and specifically with public characters, especially for us as being fans, we're obviously looking and saying our team's going to win and what the score is and at the end of the game. And quite often, to our shame, I would say, especially those of us who are Christians, we forget that there's things happening in the background. There's lives being lived in the background. And these guys are trying to honor the Lord and be a witness. And there's difficulties they have in life. There's losses they have and how they deal with that. And all of that comes to the surface. But the Lord uses people wherever they are. Again, whether it's all the athletes that are doing that versus somebody who's in construction and is a mechanic or a pastor. God has called all of us to be serving Him with the tools we have at our disposal, and the gifts that we have. Simple. Like, I wish people just understood that really well and just did it.
Actually, this week has been, as I mentioned previously, that unfortunately someone at work unalived themselves this week, which was a massive shock to the system for the workplace. But in that tragic event has given me the opportunity to pray openly and to speak openly about Christ and spread what I wouldn't necessarily usually do. We have to, certainly in the UK, you need to be a little bit more wiser than what we used to be with our words, and certain of offending people, and it did give me the opportunity to speak to quite a few of the I'm going to say young lads, because they're younger than me, young lads from work, and actually offer I want to say counselling to a certain extent, and the lads that I have spoken to, who I said, who have taken it quite hard, that I would be praying for them, and the lads that I spoke to and said that specifically to have actually come to see me on other occasions when there haven't been other people around to sort of ask me a few more questions, which is, it's opened a door which wouldn't necessarily have been open as a result of a tragedy, which is, it's been a mixed week. So that's like the high, you have the high point, but you also have the very low point. And the high point is obviously being able to share Christ and offer I'm going to say fatherly figure to them. So yeah, I'm a maintenance man, so I work with my hands. They're all working lads from working class homes. Some of them quite rough Scottish working homes, and it's been nice to be able to say, I tell you what, if you're free on Sunday, why not come to my church on Sunday? I'll meet you at the door, and we can go in together. You can sit with my family. You can be under the word, come join us with the songs, raise your arm and shout and scream and wave a flag if you well, actually don't wave the flag because you probably, but like, worship, and just be a part of it. And we'll see where it goes from then. One young lad has actually said that he would like to. So, I mean, that's great. On top of everything that's happened this week, which has been negative, there's one real positive thing. So, whether or not he actually does come on Sunday, that's a different conversation. But we'll have to hope and pray that actually comes to fruition. So, if everyone could pray for that, that would be great. I won't drop his name because that would be unfair. But Andy's mate, if
yeah. I mean, that's not necessary. God knows. But yeah, man, and it's, my reaction to that would be like, it's biblical, and what I mean by that is it has that theme. It has that theme of pain, loss, difficulty, tragedy, and then through that comes like redemption and life and resurrection. And I've seen that so many times. And I would have dealt with, I mean, the age difference between us is about 5 years. And I would have dealt with, and I'm sure you would have dealt with stuff like this very differently when you were, 17 to 25. And then you experience life and you see a lot more of this, and you see a lot more tragedies and difficulties and things people don't have control over. And then there's sort of a settledness that comes about you, where you can take on that role of, being an older brother or a fatherly figure to them and say, hey, here's what you need. Look, I've been there. You might think you don't need this, but trust me, you really need this. This is exactly what you need in your life. And they might not see that, immediately they might not see that. But look, frankly, one of the things I've been amazed with in the last number of months is seeing people I've known for a long time, or I used to know, and then lost contact with them. And then in recent years, after 15, 20 years, these individuals coming to know the Lord because of the ministry that was done all those years ago. And they came into a certain kind of maturity and had some experiences in life and said, "Oh man, I think God's really trying to get a hold of me." And then turn their life. I had the privilege of baptizing one of them recently, and it was like, wow, it took about 20 years for this to come to fruition, but it came to fruition, right? Like, and that's fine. I got a fruit tree outside that hasn't given any fruit for the past 5-6 years, and it's finally produced fruit this year. And I've been tempted many times just to chop it off and cut it down and be like, this is a useless tree, into the fire you go. But we've been patient with it, I guess. And it's, whatever, like 3-4 weeks ago, I looked at it and I was like, wow, it's got a bunch of fruit on it. Yeah, it's glory to God. And sometimes that's just the reality of it. Sometimes the reality is just patience, watering, caring, doing all the things that we're supposed to be doing. And then allowing God to give the growth, because that's what Scripture speaks about. We don't have to go out of our ways. I don't think we need to speak in languages like I saved so and so. I know there's in some Christian circles that's a norm of conversations. It's no, you planted or you watered or you cared. The Lord made it grow, and then here's what you get to see. You harvest maybe. God gives you the privilege at times to do the harvesting, and in my life that hasn't been very often. It's happened sometimes, but that hasn't been the norm. In my personal life, the norm's always been to water and plant. And I just want to be faithful in doing that. And again, I have friends who seems like are very gifted in harvesting, and they do that very, very well. And glory to God. And so you bring the whole thing together and you realize, wow, there's a holistic picture of what God is doing and how he's expanding his kingdom. And all of that. So that's in the midst of that tragedy and sadness and loss, and it's not to negate those things. It's not to act like those things haven't happened. They clearly have. But it's within the midst of those things where people start asking really serious questions about life. And it's within that the Christian steps in and says, we have very serious answers to these very serious questions. Frankly, your buddies on Friday night or Saturday night at the pub don't have answers to these questions. The way you've thought and the way you've gone about answering these questions, it's not there. And the real answer is the one who's given us life and is the sustainer of all existence, who's actually communicated to us. And there's the answers. And here you go. So, communicating those things to people. All of these gardening analogies. Well, I guess that's biblical. Jesus gave a bunch of gardening analogies. I just frankly think we need to plant and grow things a lot more. You don't need a lot of dirt and ground to do that. I used to live in an apartment building, and I did that out of pots, and I learned a great deal about Jesus and God and what it looks like to care. It's been a hobby, and I really enjoy doing it. You should collect a greenhouse. I've thought about having a greenhouse, but I don't really need it. Los Angeles is sort of like a giant greenhouse. So weather's always good. Sometimes things are just like always growing. Seasonal stuff here is really, really weird, you guys. It never gets as cold as it does anywhere else for it to, because other places they got to bury, branches, and they got to bury seeds and all that stuff. We don't have to do any of that stuff. But yeah, my recommendation to Christians has always been plant and garden a bit. It's also just good to get your hands in some dirt once in a while. Other than the spiritual, lessons you will learn.
Yeah, my gardening experience would go back to my past life, so I won't go into that. But yeah, anyway, best I don't mention any more on that.
Yeah, the fact that we have to go to church, this is interesting, right? Like, so the fact that we have to go to church and then read from the Gospels, and then Jesus will give some kind of an analogy. In order for a kernel of wheat to produce more, it must first die. Let's just say. And then like 80% of the people sitting there have no idea what he's talking about, what the analogy is, because they've never held a kernel of grain. They've never planted a seed. They've never seen the fact that when you plant a seed, it dies, it dries out, and then it sprouts. And so for them, it doesn't make sense. The analogy doesn't make sense. And so we need someone to actually explain things that to Jesus' audience would have immediately been known. And I find that fascinating. And just part of the reason is because most of us, at least in the West, we're not living in that kind of culture. I was listening. I'm going to mention Dallas Willard now. I was listening to Dallas Willard, and there's this talk he gives, and he's speaking about Psalm 8. And in Psalm 8, the context is that he goes to say that you've put under our feet all of creation, and then all the animals that's mentioned in Psalm 8 are domesticated animals, oxen, sheep. But it's a commentary on Genesis, and Genesis 1, where God gives authority to human beings over his creation. But in Genesis 1, when he gives the authority, dominion, right, stewardship, it's not domesticated animals. And it's very interesting to make that comparison, that in Psalm 8, it's all domesticated animals, and then in Genesis, it's not, because it's the wild. And human beings, a part of our task, you could say, is to bring into order the disorderly in creation. And then he says, Dallas Willard says, human beings have lived off the back of animals since the beginning. He said the sad thing is that most of us in cities have no idea what this looks like. And he says that he grew up on a farm, so he always brings about farm analogies and says, here's what I observed about sheep when I was keeping sheep on my farm. And then when I read Psalm 23, it made a lot of sense that you lead me beside the still waters. Like, that means something to a sheep, to be led by still waters, or to be laying down in green pastures. And if you haven't dealt with animals, that might not make any sense. But when you actually see why animals go through certain habits and why they do the things they do, a lot of it starts making a lot more sense. And that's frankly why I always tell people, look, I don't know, you probably can't keep an animal, right? I don't have goats running around outside, and some people do. And that's fine. It's great. But you can plant stuff. Like, I don't know, find some carrot seeds and plant them in a pot about that big, and you get a bunch of carrots, and it's really fun. And I used to have hanging strawberry plants that my kids loved. And so I've just planted various things, and that's a lesson for them, and they see it grow and all that stuff. So that's just my encouragement. It will make you understand a number of things in the Bible way better, because that's the world the Bible's written in. And so it gives you an experiential aspect, and it's healthy for you. It's good for you. Some comments have come in. Farmers are blessed and humble individuals. Not easy work, but they are in tune with God's rhythm, whether conscious of God or not. That's correct. One of my mentors, a very good friend of mine, he said, Art, have you noticed that a lot more people in the cities tend to be more atheistic and agnostic, and a lot more people who live in the country tend to be a lot more religious? And I was like, oh, that's an interesting observation. I wonder why. And he said, well, because when people are in the city, all they see is the creation of their own hands. And when people are in the country and they look around, they see the creation of God's hands. And that naturally leads to a number of questions. I thought that was an absolutely amazing observation. I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, when the farmer doesn't have rain, he's going to be praying. Like, God, and folks tend to be people in almost every country. People in the country tend to be a lot more religious than people in big cities. Just something to think about. Christina says, plant a seed by spreading the gospel to people, or you can pray for those who need or want God to work in their lives. Planting a seed, as the Bible says, spiritually speaking, is what I mean. Yeah, amen to that. And when the opportunity presents itself, right? And I love, there's an aspect of when Jesus speaks about the farmer went out and scattered the seed. And, some of the seed fell on rocky soil, and some fell between the cracks, and some fell amongst thorns, and some fell on really good soil. The idea of scattering seed, this is another thing a lot of people don't know about. There is a method of how to scatter seed. Like if you actually watch someone who knows how to plant seeds, there's a method they throw the seed out. And part of it is some is going to take and some is not going to take. And when you compare that to the preaching of the Christian gospel and the way we interact with people, guess what? Some of it's going to take and some of it's not going to take. And Jesus gives obviously an explanation to that whole aspect of those 4 different kinds of seeds. But yeah, that's the reality of the Christian life. He said, obligatory, Dallas Willard mentioned, he should pay you for mentioning him infinitely, sir. Well, he's passed away. But I guess the work he's done is efficient for me mentioning him constantly. I remember the part where God gave Jonah a tree when he was asking for shade. I don't recall any other stories about plants in the Bible, though. There's plenty. As a matter of fact, one of the most interesting things you might find in the Old Testament is how God meets people underneath trees, near trees. That's partly because they believed that trees were significant and religious sites, as were high places. But for example, God meets Abraham beneath the trees of Mamre, is what the text of the Bible says. But think about Jesus' analogies about a faith as small as a mustard seed. So there's a lot of analogies, and Paul's the whole thing about some plant, some water, but God gives light to kind of grow. Those are all planting analogies. I mean, they don't have to do with particular plants, you could say. A man who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is not fit for the work in the kingdom. That's farming analogy right there. I'm just kind of, it's coming to me and I'm remembering, but there's a lot more than that that I mentioned, but it's everywhere. Once you see, it's the sort of thing, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so you just kind of dive deeper into it.
Arthur, I'm going
Tree of Life. She mentioned, Tree of Life.
I'll jump back into the chat if that's all right. And drop off in case anybody else wants to join you or anything like that. I'll drop back into the live stream if that's all right with you.
Absolutely is. Thanks for joining me, man. Thanks for sharing. I think that's been a learning experience for the people that have been here.
Thank you.
Good seeing your face.
Having me up. Yeah, absolutely. I thought I'd show my face at least once. You won't see me again. That's it. No, I'm joking. If you want me to come back, I'll come back. God bless you, and bless everyone else in the chat. And I'll join you in a second, guys. Take care.
Bless you too. Oh, yeah. Great conversation. Thank you. Let's see. Yeah, man. So the gardening analogies, because that is the context, right? Like, so think about the analogies about Jesus, or examples, you could say. Come follow me and I will make you fishers of men. Well, he's talking to a bunch of fishermen. It just makes absolute sense. It makes absolute sense for Jesus to go to a bunch of people who are fishermen and say, hey, I'm going to make you fishers of men. Because they understand what fishing is like. And so to speak to them in the language of being a fisherman makes sense. And so when Jesus is talking to the general populace, and the general populace that are listening to him, or it's an agricultural society, so to give examples of planting and building and harvesting is immediately understood by the audience. And so one of the examples that I think is really cool, and I believe, so in the book of Revelation, where Jesus is essentially sending those letters to the churches, I believe it's the letter to the Laodiceans, where he says, you're neither hot nor cold. You're lukewarm, and pick one, because it's lukewarm water is useless, and it should just be spit out. Well, one of the things that if you study your Bibles, you realize is that the city of Laodicea didn't have a proper water source close by, and so what they had done was develop an aqueduct system that brought water down from far away. And by the time the water actually ended up in Laodicea, it was actually lukewarm. So they either had to heat it or cool it down for them to have proper drinking water or water to shower with and all that. And so he's using very clearly something they are very familiar with, which is their main water source coming into their town, to speak about themselves and their walk with the Lord. And God does that constantly. And yes, this is a really good example as well. Grafting in language. I'm the vine, you are the branches. Bearing fruit is everywhere in the Bible. Yeah, and so the branches that do not bear fruit ought to be cut off. Pruning language is used in the Bible. I just actually pruned a grapevine and another tree that I had. I actually pruned 2 trees. And it's very interesting learning how to prune properly. And I'm not an expert at it. And you can use logic and figure it out. But one of the things I discovered about a certain fruit tree that I have, it's an apricot tree. And with trees like that, you never want to leave branches in the center of the tree, which is I never even processed that, but I was learning about it. And so you want to prune them so you want to cut off all the branches that are in the middle of the tree, and you want the tree to kind of grow outside, partly because if they're inside and there's branches outside, and once they sprout and all the leaves come in and all that, it's not going to let enough sunlight hit the branches in the middle of the tree, and they're never going to grow. They're just going to be useless. As a matter of fact, they're going to suck away energy and resources that would be good for all the other branches. And so you get rid of the branches in the middle of the tree, and you want your tree to go. And that's when you look at trees, there's a shape to them. That's not accidental. People have pruned them and designed them to grow that way, right? So all of these things, I mean, we can sit here and talk about this for hours and learn lessons from them. And the Bible has definitely adequate examples that it gives about such things. And it's wonderful and beautiful. Well, guys, I think I'm going to call it a day. It was 3 hours and 36 minutes. I didn't expect to be on here for that long. But appreciate you guys. Thanks for all the people that have called in. I think there was a theme to the people who called in. That was very beautiful. I've had multiple people, by the way, talk about the new setup and how much they like it, even though the lens we're using on this setup is a way, way cheaper lens than the other one we had, but just the angle of it. I might actually exchange lenses and see how that looks. And if that looks really good, I might just keep that there. Yeah, I hope that you guys have a blessed weekend. Go to church, spend some time with your church family this Sunday. Don't fall victim to internet nonsense, constant bickering and arguing, and people accusing each other of various things, especially if that is taken away from your relationship with the Lord and how you are to love others. Okay. Yep. Take care. God bless you guys. And I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.